All right, welcome everyone to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, July 1st. And I'm thrilled we have a full board here today. Greg Postman's running just a little late, but we're going to get started without him. And I am pleased to do something that's not on our agenda, but we'd like to invite our current roster of summer interns to introduce yourselves, please, and tell us which departments you're working with, and maybe which schools you've come from. And we're grateful to have you here with us this summer. Thank you.
Well, thank you. My name is Karina De Leon. I go to Aspen High School, and I'm an incoming senior this year.
Okay. And what department are you interning with?
Interning with the IT department, actually.
Okay. Excellent. You have a bright future ahead.
You're in a good spot today.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Cora Tracy. I go to the Aspen High School, and I am in the library department.
Excellent. Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
My name is Thomas Robinson. I also go to Aspen High School, and I'm interning with community development this summer.
Okay, great. Thank you, Thomas. Nice to meet you.
Hi, my name is Julian. I'm going Glenwood Spring High School.
Wow.
And I'm intern in the senior center.
Okay.
Wow, well, good for you.
Thanks for coming today.
How fun.
And I'm Jill. I'm with the HR department, and we are missing 2 interns today. Tommy, who is with our communications, and then Mateo, who's with our OST. So right now we have 6 departments participating. It's our second year doing this. We're hoping to get more interns coming in just because it is great exposure for the public sector and great work experience overall. Just for us, we are grateful for the interns who chose to, spend a month of their summer with us. Not all people want to do that. Not all teenagers want to do that. So we're grateful for you all. And just additionally, this was a role that they earned. They did go through the application process, the interview process. So it is just great experience, for those of you who are going into the workforce in the next few years. And just from a Pickens County standpoint, we are hoping that Pickens County is kind of on the front line for future workforce kind of pipeline into government work. So I'm excited to have you guys. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
And
for
I
fostering.
should make a quick note. I heard today on the radio, it's 46 days until you go back to school again. Enjoy your 30 days with us. We promise to entertain you.
But Friday is a holiday.
Yeah.
As a parent to 2 young kids, I'm not counting at all. All right, great. Well, thank you for that, and we're really thrilled to have you all. Feel free to reach out to any of the commissioners if you want to talk to
thanks.
us about
Welcome
any
aboard.
items happening in the county. And so with that, we are very excited today to host staff from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Nice to see you all, and I'll give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves. We have regularly met jointly to discuss topics of mutual interest and learn from your expertise, and we haven't done that in a little while, so I think this is a great opportunity to catch up together. And I'll turn it over to you, let you introduce ourselves, and then we'll kind of just run through the agenda.
My name is Curtis Tesh, District Wildlife Manager for the Upper Roaring Fork Valley.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Matt Yamashita. I'm Area Wildlife Manager for CPW out of Glenwood Springs.
Good afternoon. I'm John Groves. I'm now the Assistant Area Wildlife Manager for the Roaring Fork Valley. Been the District Wildlife Manager out of Carbondale for the last 20 plus years.
All right, wonderful.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, you too.
And when we were kind of planning this invitation with you, the topics that the commissioners were hoping to cover have to do with bears at the Pickens County landfill, an update on the wolf reintroduction and management plan, a discussion about Beaver Lake, what you're seeing over there, some discussion about the augmentation planning happening, the Sam Caudill boat ramp, which looks like a great success, and any info you want to share about the aquatic nuisance species, which we keep an eye on via our participation in Rawapa at the Root Eye Reservoir and in other parts of the watershed. And so I will just kick off. The inspiration from this meeting came from some discussion from Francie, bringing it to us that there have been conversations at the Wildlife Commission relative to concerns about bear activity at the Pickens County landfill. This has been an ongoing concern for many years, and we wanted to benefit from what those conversations have been and your expertise and possibly foreshadowing things that we should be thinking about as we do more upgrades and planning. at that resource. And so I will I'll look to my board to make sure I've framed that properly, and then we'll turn it over to you. That good?
Yeah, I think it's great. I spoke with Matt yesterday and told him that we don't want to make a decision on bears of the landfill without basing it on science. And so we're looking for, advice and knowledge and experience from you guys, and other organizations as well have certainly weighed in on it.
Well, can I add?
Yeah.
I am talking about one other issue, talked with Brian Pettit about the landfill yesterday, and briefly. And apparently, our previous year or two previous, we had significant bear issues, and it's my understanding that we have little, if any, bear issues this year.
We have what?
Little, if any, bear issues this year. And, a lot of it depends on Mother Nature and the vegetation. And so when we have lack of vegetation, berries and stuff, we have more bears. And so it's kind of a seasonal, again, Mother Nature, vegetation, also related issues. So thank you. And that was very interesting information. Brian shaking his head that I'm correct in quoting him here. Thank you.
Hi, Greg. We're just getting started.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. Apologize. Glad to see you all here. Glad to be here.
So I think what we'll do is just try and kind of foster a conversation here. I think our hope is to learn from you what you're seeing and hearing, and any recommendations you would have for us to consider as we move forward. And then I think for the bulk of this meeting, we'll probably want to talk about wolves, since they're getting lots of attention in Pickens County. But we do want to cover everything today.
Certainly. I'll start the conversation, and then I'll turn it over to Curtis or John to add in as they see fit or have additional details. Bears in Pickens County, those two words have gone together for a long time. I mean, it's part of the conversation. I don't think anybody's ignorant to that being a topic of discussion. One of the things, though, in the scope of this discussion, just related to bear activity at the landfill, a lot of this conversation, portions of this, we've been talking between the county and our agency for decades. I mean, this goes back long before any of us were in these roles here, including all of us here sitting at the table. Beyond that, it's one of those things too that it's not the only landfill in the state that has bear activity at it. So we're paying attention to what we have control over and what we're working on here locally. But there is a larger scale connection to what's going on with landfill management, just waste management as a whole. So even outside of the scope of the landfill itself, Pickens County sees high human-bear conflict. Even on good years, we're still higher than most other regions in the state. I hope Commissioner Clapper didn't jinx us by saying that we have a low count. If things start turning a different direction, we know who to blame. But we pay attention to what's going on with the natural forage, and right now, everybody, I think it's no surprise to anybody, we are extremely hot and dry. We've got some berries that are starting to ripen up, so there's some food sources that are available to bears. It's early, really, really early. If we don't get any seasonal rains or monsoons coming through to supplement that, we're forecasting that this could be a pretty rough summer and in particular fall ahead of us. A lot of the forage species that are available in the fall when bears are trying to pack on calories, they're going to be requiring what Mother Nature brings right now. So we're not in the clear yet. Just because our numbers aren't high yet doesn't mean that they can't get there in the next 2 or 3 months ahead of us. So we're still working on that, waiting to see what happens. But addressing specifically the landfill here, those conversations of recent, we had interest from an outside group, the Colorado Bear Coalition. They have some personalities that took interest to our landfill here and wanted to see if there's any way to resolve some of the bear activity at that particular facility. And they brought it up to our Parks and Wildlife Commission. They've mentioned it 3 times, starting back in March at our various commission meetings, and have requested that the county take some action. Our commissioners have encouraged them to talk locally with staff. We hosted a meeting. Commissioner Jacober was on that meeting here back in the end of May. We talked with personalities from Colorado Bear Coalition to discuss what some of those things are, what they're paying attention to. One of the solutions they brought forward was electrifying a fence surrounding the facility. I mean, as an agency, our goal, whether it's our commission, any staff members, it's not our authority to tell, to tell you guys what to do. That's your guys' job. You guys instruct the county, you guys run the county. Our job is to help you guys make an informed decision. So really what our role in participating in this is just to make sure that you guys understand what we know about bear management, about the use of electricity, electric fencing, those kinds of things, whether that's a meaningful solution, if there are other solutions out there. In the discussion that we hosted with Commissioner Jacober, we talked about electrified fencing. And CPW as an agency, we do recognize electric fencing as a reasonable solution to some problems. We as an agency actually supply electric fencing for certain agricultural operations, specifically for beekeepers on apiaries. We provide materials that'll help them fortify some of their hives and their apiaries against bear activity. With that though, there comes a caveat. One of those caveats that we made mention at the meeting is that there's some upfront expense, obviously, from the county if you guys were to install some sort of an electric fence around there. And the second part to it is the maintenance side of it. What we see routinely is on these fences that we provide beekeepers, we do find issue in sometimes where they are not properly maintained, and as vegetation grows up around it, as trash blows up against it, other things occur, it'll ground it out, and that essentially renders it ineffective. Bears, just like any other creature, they figure out when things aren't working and they find a way around it. And so, it's one of those things that we don't want to forecast that if an electric fence was installed, that this is a silver bullet that solves all problems in perpetuity. There's probably some costs associated with it that probably need to be explored. Some, if that, whatever that may be, just to maintain and make sure that it's always functional. So that's just an aspect of it. The other part of it is even with these electric fences, some of these years where our Bruin friends get a little bit desperate for food, even electric fences, they'll find their way. They will persevere and they will break through hot wire fences. You've seen it on some of the reports and some of the other investigations we've conducted in town where bears will get desperate and they'll tear holes through the sides of garages and those kinds of things. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and some of these years, even an electric fence may not be enough to keep some of these animals out. So there, again, no 100% guarantee that that's going to be the solve all problem or solution for the problem. So just some precautionary notes out there that there may be some good things there. Reasonably, when it comes to human-bear conflict management, where we found the most success is in a combination of different tools. Maybe some of it's electricity, some of it's other just best management practices. There's a whole bunch of different things that we should probably explore in just how we operate facilities and what those practices may be. The last portion of it, though, before I kind of turn it over to everybody else and just let the conversation continue, is that we also want to recognize that the landfill is an aspect. It's a part of the story. It's not the only place that we have conflict within the county. There is obviously other conflict that exists in the county with and without that landfill. So we'd want to make sure that it's not the only focal point where we're addressing human-bear conflict within the county. If we're making efforts, we should probably be, also focusing on some of these other corridors in here where we do see routine conflict. Bears coming in and hitting residential trash, residential recycling, commercial, and some of those other aspects with the restaurant and business corridors, some of the fruiting trees and everything else that are in the residential areas and in town always have a role in it. We see people putting bird feeders out every year, and they bring them down, they forget about it. It's a good year at the beginning of the year, so think, oh man, I can put it back out, and then they do it, and now we have bears coming back in again. So those are perpetual things that exist that are still a part of the equation that I'd hate to be ignorant to any of those and pretend like this is the only thing for us to focus on. So with that, I'll let anybody else speak, or if you guys have questions, want to dive deeper into any of those, let us know. But at the end of the day, our goal is to just be, subject matter experts for you to lean on. And if you have questions about anything that you guys are looking into or want to know more about, lean on us. And if we have information, we're happy to share that and be productive with you.
Wonderful, thank you. Other input from your team? And then I'll see if the board has questions. No? Okay, Patty, Greg?
Yeah, due to all of what you said and the fact we've had good vegetation, we've had good feed fodder for them so far, is there any idea about the population issues? Do you think we have less population of bears in the valley or in our urban areas, suburban, rural, whatever you want to call them, areas? Due to the fact we are, so far, again, I don't want to jinx anything, not seeing a lot of activity. For example, in my own neighborhood, I'm not seeing signs like we had occasion at the beginning of the season when they were coming out and hungry. And everything kind of mellowed out, and probably because berries came out. But now I'm not seeing scat, and we're not seeing evidence of trash getting rummaged as much as in previous years. But I don't know if there's a population, question in there.
I think overall population trends for bears, we still have a ton of bears. I mean, there's no doubt about
They're
that.
just lurking.
Yeah, and so we have a lot of bears. We as an agency, we monitor things on what we consider a population scale. So we're not looking specifically at Aspen or Snowmass or even Pickens County. It's on a much larger scale that encompasses, for our area here, all of the Roaring Fork Valley, all of the Eagle Valley, all the way north in the northern portions of Eagle County. Very different landscape over there, but that's the population of bears that we're managing it by. Our population, so we don't have counts like we do for deer and elk. It's impossible to count the bears in that fashion, but we do monitor conflict trends. We monitor, some of our just the conflict numbers in the municipalities. The other thing we also manage and monitor is hunter harvest. So hunters are required to report harvest to us, and through that, when we check those animals, we check body conditions, and we also check male, female, age class, everything else associated with it. Our harvest indices are demonstrating that we may be right on the cusp of starting to have a declining population. There can be some bias in some of that harvest depending upon the type of year you have and the hunter effort that's put into harvesting some of those animals. Obviously if we have concentrations of bears, and that's where everybody's going to try to fill their license. So there's some of that in there, and we look at the trend data. So it's not based off of what information comes in one year. It's based off of a 3 to 5 year trend on what we're seeing over time. The last couple of years here, we're starting to see a possible trend where, through harvest anyway, maybe our population's stabilizing and starting to decrease. The other part, though, that I can't ignore is anecdotally, as staff, as we're handling conflicts and as we're making observations and receiving reports from citizens, we still see a ton of cubs. If we're seeing cubs, and when we're seeing cubs, we're not seeing a sow with one cub or even two cubs. We're seeing a lot of triplets and even in some places quadruplets. Science tells you that's not possible. That black bears shouldn't be reproducing that much. What we're looking at is that if there's a sow producing 3 cubs, and we're doing that on some of these years that Mother Nature's telling us we don't have adequate food supplies, we have a healthy population. They reproductively, they should have an internal mechanism built in, right, where they have delayed implantation, and they shouldn't be able to carry through on their full-term pregnancy if Mother Nature hasn't provided adequate food. So the fact that when spring hits and we see all these sows with twins and triplets tells us that, yes, they are finding adequate food, and when they're popping 3 babies out the next year, we've got more than adequate. So realistically, from that perspective, I would wager that we're actually seeing contradiction, that our populations aren't declining. They're actually more healthy than, they're finding a way to be more healthy than what's out there. The last piece of that, though, is based off of, a lot of our models are based off of the habitat available, and that habitat doesn't necessarily qualify or quantify what we have in town here. It doesn't take into consideration, human-related food sources, trash, birdseed, all the things we just listed that are kind of problems. It doesn't take that into consideration as being habitat. Habitat, it's a nebulous thing, but we all know that bears use our towns. They use actually humans as a crutch to get by. When Mother Nature doesn't provide for them,
They come to my house.
Yes, that's where we're going to prove Commissioner Clapper wrong here in 2 months and show her that our numbers are going to skyrocket.
And you know how to find me.
Exactly.
That's
Well,
good,
and
but-
if you're still void of them, we can deliver some to you. So, open invitation, I suppose.
I have a really tight yard, so.
But so there are other things
She'll
out
be
there.
very
I would
popular
say
with her neighbors.
easy enough. The general answer is that while some of our indices may show that we're stabilizing on some of our population trends, because of that, we're starting to kind of go backward, and we're starting to decrease some of our hunting license numbers just responsibly, based off of the numbers. That's what we're doing. On the other side of it, through field observations, we're still very, very healthy in our bear populations.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, anything else?
No, not.
Patty can come to my
And then
house. We've had a
Francie.
bear in the neighborhood. We see him pretty regularly. He's there. He's working Brush Creek. So what I'm getting from this is electric fences aren't the magic bullet. And there are other best practices that are necessary. It's good to keep that in mind. Human sources of food, obviously, are a problem and can supplement a dry year or a bad year for natural food, and that, to me, would be an obvious solution for a bear. It's happening all the time, right? We're redoing our landfill, so it'll be a while before we have a profile that we would consider electric fencing, because we're not going to fence a landfill that is under construction and for expansion and all that. That seems pretty obvious, if I'm not mistaken. So we have a little bit of time to figure this out. What I haven't heard is whether or not you think this is a problem worth pursuing and solving. And so I want to find out, what are the best practices for managing bears anywhere, not just here? And is what's happening now okay with you guys, with the CPW? Is this okay? What's happening? How we have a bear situation? And what suggestions can we come up with to actually try to address it? Because it's quite possible it could increase, or perhaps it'll decline for some reason. But I don't think anybody's really happy with this situation with bears now. And I'm not getting a sense that you're looking for a solution, and you're just trying to paint what's happening. So I don't know if you want to address it, but are there best practices elsewhere we could learn from as we design our landfill?
I think there are. I think it'd be inappropriate to say that somebody else has already solved that problem. Otherwise, we'd have hit cut
Be
and paste.
embarrassing.
Yeah, and we'd be replicating what their successes are. And that was in that meeting, one of the comments I had brought up to the Colorado Bear Coalition, having a Colorado landscape, setting, was, hey, in the state of Colorado, there's 60-ish public landfills. Have they worked with any other landfills and found success in implementing some of these other practices that maybe we could, go and work with them, learn what they're doing successfully locally here with the landfills that we work with in Garfield County, Eagle County, and Pickens County? We haven't found anything that's, earth-shattering. And so I think this, given, that we are looking at redesigning, redoing some of the landfill here, maybe that's an opportunity for us to work with you on some of those mechanisms that might be embedded in the construction of that. Outside of that, there's still, even outside of the landfill, I think you still have to look at the surrounding communities and still resolve some of those issues there, because we could make that landfill bulletproof, but if the problems don't go away in everything else within the Roaring Fork Valley,
They'll also be here.
yeah, they're still going to be here, and so that's fine. We do. I mean, I think, just to speak to your statement, Commissioner Poshman, we do have a problem there. There are a lot of bears at that landfill. If you have ever been there as the landfill closes operations, it's amazing to watch how many animals start moving off the hillside and start coming in there. They're making a living. They're doing what they do, to survive. But I think there's ways, it's not a one size fits all. It's not something as easy as me giving you a bullet point list and saying, if Pickens County does these 5 things, then our problems go down by 80%. It's probably one of those things that changes seasonally, changes annually, and that we have to be adaptable to. And that's the hard part. Even when, Curtis and John, all of us are managing things in town here, it's a suite of options that we kind of hold available to us. And depending upon the scenario, it's where we're pulling from that toolbox to utilize one at a time based on what the need is. So it's hard to go through and prescribe saying these three things are what's going to solve the problem here.
Could I ask one more add-on? We also have elk, I guess, who are wintering in the compost piles because it's generating heat. I don't know if they're an attractive nuisance or if they're attracting other predators or what, but it just doesn't seem like a natural way to manage elk.
Well, if they're keeping warm, they're smart elk, I guess.
Maybe we should just start heating
I'll agree. It's probably an attractive nuisance. They're making a living there. Is it ideal? Probably not. Ideally they would be out in their natural habitat, browsing, feeding on what they normally would. But there's a food source there, easily available. So why not exploit it and lay on a nice heated compost pile and not have to burn those calories to stay warm. So it's them just taking
Makes sense to
advantage of the
them, right?
situation.
Yeah. Okay. Are we okay with that?
I don't know, are we? It's a valid question, but it's kind of along the same lines as, when we're managing deer, elk that are living on golf courses. Same thing. Is that a natural setting? Arguably not. Can they and will they do that? 100%. I mean, that's why we see them hanging out where we see them. And that's really animals just being adaptive and finding a way around what humans are disturbing in their natural world. So, yeah, we might not be okay with it. It might be something that we look into with a part of whatever we're designing there. We just have to kind of prioritize working with you, figure out what are our priorities to address. Which ones do we come up with solutions for? Which ones do we just acknowledge and continue managing as necessary?
Thanks, Matt. Francie?
Thank you.
Well, that was one of the topics, was about the elk. But I also, at that meeting when we were talking about fencing, one of the things Ty mentioned is elk and electric fencing. That is not a great combination. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
We can, and it just depends on the style of fence. Yeah. I think specifically, Ty was mentioning some of the electric fencing that's specific to like livestock production. And when you electrify, fencing that elk are routinely jumping over to get to another landscape, elk have a habit, they have more of a tradition of just ruining those fences. They will run through them instead of over them. They're built strong enough that doesn't bother them at all. And that's where, in that style fence, it's going to be an issue. Now, if it was some sort of a chain link style fence with some sort of hot wired system on top, probably less likely that elk are trying to hurdle that and less disruptive. But if there were portions of it that, it could be an issue. The other portion of any kind of a fence with strands is that if you have those routinely, every year, I'm sure you guys see the releases from CPW come the fall and the winter where animals are rubbing on things. Anything with antlers are rubbing on everything. Elk, deer, all the above, they will become entangled in those, and it becomes another nuisance issue for us to deal with. So if we're designing something that does have exposed wires like that, then we'd have to ensure that there's minimal risk of them going and rubbing on that to, during the rut or anything else, or to shed the velvet off their antlers and become entangled.
And you did say something earlier about we're still going to have bears around even if they're not at the landfill and blah, blah, blah. Don't we want to have bears around? Is there an ideal number of bears to have around, or is it just, there's no way to keep them out of Aspen or, places that have refuse everywhere. But, it seems like bears are a really important part of our, I don't know what I would call it, our ecology here.
Absolutely. We're going to have bears around no matter what we do. In my mind, like the landfill is based on Kurt, it's a 5 or 10% of our overall problem. Maybe it's not the widespread. We have problems everywhere around there. The landfill is just a concentration area where a lot of bears come because of the food availability. You fence them out of there, those bears have to go somewhere. And they're gonna make their living elsewhere within communities, within the wild around there, but those bears have to go somewhere else.
But do we have enough habitat for the bears to relocate, or do we have so many bears that there isn't room for them if they're not at the landfill?
I would say that overall there's available habitat for them. That goes on a year-to-year basis, right? If we have a food failure year, we should see less bears the next year. We don't see that. But as far as looking at the choke cherry, the available shrub habitats, the mast producing bushes that we kind of rely on to look at our available habitat, there's plenty in this valley.
Okay.
And our habitat has decreased of recent. I mean, obviously, we're going through an extended drought period. It's wreaking havoc on some of the vegetation locally, so we are high elevation, so we're a little susceptible to some of that stuff. So some of our bear habitat has diminished over the past decade. Maybe, that's probably a portion of why we're also maybe seeing a decrease in some of the bear population numbers, because it is responsive to less habitat, means less available room for bears on that landscape. So something to keep in mind.
Thank you. Patty, and then
Two quick
I'm gonna
points
wrap
so we
us up
can
and
move on. I think it'd be great, and I'm going to look at Brian and staff about some involvement when we're moving forward with the landfill, as to maybe sharing some suggestions, solutions, or just ideas, throw them out there. We're always open to that. I think that would be great. The other thing, I think education is ongoing, and we have a transient population, in many cases more so with short-term rentals, people coming and going who don't understand the need to, with their trash, their dog food, their barbecues, the simple things, their bird feeders. So that is always ongoing, and I think the board has always been supportive of finding grants and whatever we can to continue and hopefully maybe even increase our education of our communities, because I think humans have to play a role in being responsible. When we have to put a bear down, in many cases it's not the bear's fault, it's the human's fault by leaving bird feeders out or windows open when that education, that information is out there, whether or not they've seen it or absorb it. But I think that's an effort worth continuing.
Thanks, Patty. And I guess I would just throw out there, I wonder if there's an opportunity. I think it would be great if we had collaboration with you all as we design the landfill, but I wonder if there's also a way to advance kind of the knowledge of how the best practices operate on the ground. Like, could we test some of these out? Could we try different things at different parts of our landfills and sort of report out on maybe their effectiveness, and just help build kind of the body of knowledge of what might work at other landfills around the state of Colorado as well. I think would be an interesting thing to consider. But yes, Francie, and then let's talk wolves.
Would we have to fence the whole landfill? I mean, like all of the construction debris and all of those things wouldn't attract bears. Wouldn't we just have to do mostly our compost and that sort of thing, or?
Maybe this is one of the things we could test.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yes, let's see. Yeah, and then I'll go to Greg. I was going to go to Matt and then to you.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think I heard you say that that it's not solutions aren't working in the immediate region. But did you say you didn't really know what was happening at landfills elsewhere in the state or even beyond? Or could there be something happening in Oregon or Idaho or Wyoming or Durango that we should be looking at? Maybe that's not your job to look at that, but it'd be great to understand what's possible out there, and I think you guys would be interested.
I think that's a reasonable request, and I don't know, even outside of most of there are other portions of the state I'm aware of just through my counterparts and discussions with them, and there's not a single landfill out there that's solved all the problems and have zero bear issues in there. So I think it's safe to say that if there are practices being implemented, that there's still room for improvement. Outside of the state, though, that's an interesting concept. Haven't worked on that. I've attended bear workshops in other states, and that topic has not come up. I haven't heard about solutions related to that, but it'd be an interesting thing to look into. So, and I agree. I think good opportunity for us to experiment and find out maybe some of these things work. Maybe we elaborate and build on that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. You good? Okay. I would love to move us on for the wolf discussion, which I imagine will take the bulk of our remaining time together. And I think, and I'll just say to kind of level set, you know, the members of our board come to this topic with varying levels of knowledge and participation and interaction on that. And, you know, we have had benefited from Francie's participation in the reintroduction. I forget what you call that committee. Anyway, over
The
several
Stakeholders
years.
Advisory Group.
Yes, thank you. And, you know, obviously we are all reading in the news and hearing from colleagues on the board about greater concerns building in parts of Pickens County since the introduction earlier this year. And so I think it would be helpful to maybe start from kind of an overview of where we're at with the reintroduction and the management plan, and then kind of start to drill down in some of the Pickens County concerns, you know, how we can continue to be partners in all this discussion as well. Is that
Perfect.
helpful?
Yeah.
I framed that
I'll
well,
start and
board? Okay, thanks.
I'll
And we
let
thank you. I know
you
this
guys
is a
guide me.
hot topic, so thanks.
I'll start with some stuff, and let me know if it's too vague, if it's too specific, whatever that is. You're right. I think this topic we could sit here and talk all day
Yeah.
and still not touch on all portions of this topic. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of nuance to it. We are a portion of what's going on. And obviously, we have our fingerprints on some of the stuff happening locally here in Pickens County, but that's part of the larger statewide scale management plan reintroduction effort. So specific to Pickens County, you know, our wolf plan, this starts where we are charged as an agency by state statute to reintroduce gray wolves in the state of Colorado. Our reintroduction efforts are that we're supposed to be bringing in 10 to 15 animals annually until we reach 30 to 50 animals on the landscape and get a population started. Through the process of doing that, we're hoping for natural reproduction and monitoring, you know, those animals that are reproducing and start building towards a sustainable population. That's the ultimate goal. Reintroduction efforts started in December 2023. That was when the first round of releases came. Those did not occur in Pickens County. Those were hosted in different portions of the state, primarily Grand County, as well as Summit County. And there were sites over there where those animals came from Oregon, were released there. Fast forward to winter of 2024-2025, this past winter, and in January 2025, CPW released wolves in parts of them were in Pickens County, other portions of Eagle County, and those wolves were ones that were transported from British Columbia. There were 15 animals total that came to the state from British Columbia. Some of those animals landed here in Pickens County. In addition to those animals there, one of the groups of wolves that had existed on the landscape previously from Grand County had started causing some problems, and the agency had made a decision in 2024 to remove them from the landscape, had taken them into a private facility and had kept them there, and then made the decision to reintroduce them into the wild as a part of the population. So those animals were also released as a part of our release efforts in January 2025. Again, not all of those animals were released in Pickens County. Only a portion of those animals were released. The other ones were released in Eagle County. Following those releases, you know, there was communication. There were efforts made to educate the public, efforts made to educate elected officials, other stakeholder groups, inclusive of our livestock producers, some of the agricultural community, both in Pickens County, Garfield County, Eagle County, all affected counties, just trying to reach out, give them some information on what to expect, what was going on. They participated really, really well. I mean, there was a lot of participation from those groups in those discussions. That moved us forward to CPW. Following up on that, we started initiating through our staff. We hired on additional staff, and we started conducting site assessments with some of these landowners, some of these producers, and just going through and taking a look, having a kind of a prescriptive perspective on where they were vulnerable, some of the things that they might do to mitigate and minimize conflict on their properties. So we conducted site assessments, which were things that we were talking about, how they, you know, some of their practices on husbandry and carcass removal and other management strategies, working with them on some of that stuff proactively. A lot of those, I mean, Pickens County, I'll commend a lot of our producers. They did a phenomenal job of stepping up to the plate, taking it into their own hands, and trying to resolve issues before they began. In February of 2025, was our first round of depredations where wolves killed livestock. So that occurred February this past year. Our staff went out and investigated those, confirmed that the wolves were the culprit on some of these livestock depredation events. The producers, the claimants, they are eligible by state statute for being reimbursed for those losses. We've been working with them on what their options are, what that looks like. So we're still in communications with them. They're still talking about pursuing some of that reimbursement option, but it's something that's available there. In addition to that, we worked with those specific producers that were receiving damage to increase some of their conflict minimization mitigation. CPW came in, and we have, just like we were discussing with bears, we have a suite of tools that are available, and we started issuing some of these conflict minimization, some of the equipment, the deterrents. We threw out fox lights and noise-making devices and installed some of the flagging fencing out there, the flaggery, in order to deter wolves from being in these areas, from trespassing on some of these parcels where they were hosting some of their calving operations. Some of it was effective in that it minimized some of the conflict in those parcels. Some of it, there was still wolf activity in the area, but we didn't receive another round of depredation events that we were able to confirm any incidents until May. So, we had a couple months there, a couple month hiatus of any issues per se. There were still wolves on the landscape. There were still livestock on the landscape. Fast forward to May, and that's when CPW staff confirmed additional depredations in Pickens County on 3 different ranches. You probably read about those ones in the papers. A lot of those ranchers were frustrated, and agreeably so. They were very vocal about their frustrations, and they just, more than anything, their frustrations, they wanted to let people know why they were frustrated and where their frustrations came from. That was kind of the driving force behind a lot of their reaching out to media sources to just share some of that story. From there, the piece that I wanted to get into is kind of the more recent topic. So those depredation events that occurred end of May, CPW in that whole process came up with an administrative directive that spoke to chronic depredation. This directive was it was actually orchestrated by a stakeholder group. There was an ad hoc committee that was put together by the agency that included representatives from some of the wolf interest groups, from some of the producers across the state. It had a whole culmination of a bunch of personalities, and they helped to inform this chronic depredation administrative directive. Administrative directive for us is just a piece of information. It's a document that helps staff stay outlined with what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to handle events, and how we respond to those. So this chronic depredation administrative directive told us that if 3 depredation events occur in a 30-day period, one of which has to be clear and convincing that wolves were the culprit, that triggers chronic depredation and would otherwise warrant lethal removal of an animal. So those events that we documented in late May, they did trigger chronic depredation. By policy, by administrative directive, it fulfilled those obligations. The producers had done their part and had taken appropriate precautions per the policy, and so CPW was given. Local staff were given direction by our upper level management to lethally remove 1 animal. And 1 animal was prescribed in our policy that it will occur 1 animal at a time in order to try to effectively change the behavior of the pack. What we did from there was we did a comprehensive analysis of all the wolves. Fortunately, at this point in time, we have collars on these wolves. We were able to determine where they were, when they were there, everything else. Now, those collars, they don't give us a real-time view of what those animals are doing. They give us point data. They give us a point every 4 hours, and those points are uploaded to us every 16 to 24 hours if the collar connects to the satellite. So we had some information to go off of, but we couldn't tell exactly which animals were where. On some of those depredation events, there was only 1 animal in the area. It was pretty clear and easy for us to determine which animal was responsible for that damage. There were other events in there that there were wolves, plural, in the area. Couldn't determine exactly which one, so we started creating a list of probable suspects on that one. Off of that, we determined, there were specific animals which were highlighted that those were the ones that were responsible participating in some of these events, and those were our target animals to remove. Staff was charged with going out there, successfully removed one of the animals. It was a yearling male out of the pack. That animal was definitely involved in at least one of the depredation events, possibly involved in others, but definitely involved in at least that one, so one of the suspect animals. And now we're in a phase where we are evaluating and trying to monitor if that removal was effective, if it wasn't effective. Fast forward, and there's been some concern that there's still wolf activity in the area. Now, some of the livestock producers, they've changed some of their practices as well. They're moving up onto summer allotment pastures. So, we're trying to adapt to some of that and parse out, what's based off of the fact that livestock's moving versus what's just normal behavior, everything else. So we're monitoring some of that. We are going out and trying to help those producers minimize any additional depredation. Obviously, our goal is to have there not be any more depredation events. We also don't want to have to go out and lethally remove any more animals, whether it's bears or wolves or anything else. That's not our goal as an agency, is to go out and kill things when they get in trouble. So we are trying our best to thread the needle on that one, but we're monitoring it right now and evaluating whether any of those efforts have been successful in changing the behavior of that pack. And if they have, great. If they haven't, then we're still in a time frame where we have the option of going back in and lethally removing another animal if necessary. Obviously, we are wanting to do our due diligence and exploit every option and opportunity to not get to that point. So we're looking at everything else that we can. That's where we're trying to actively haze some of these animals. We're working with the producers. We've got range riders on the landscape that are out there helping those producers monitor their stock. Anyway, that brings us to the current state there. That was a really quick view from start to finish on things that have happened here. Happy to go into greater detail, happy to take a step back, and if there's other questions or gaps that need to be filled, let me know. And Curtis and John have been on the ground working with a lot of these producers and a lot of these communities and can definitely answer in greater detail some of the questions.
I'll ask. I'm probably the most uninformed about all this here at the table, and it would be helpful for me to understand what the goal, I guess, is for the interactions with livestock and the introduced wolves. If they're up in, they have allotments in the forest, the wolves live in the forest. Is there an acceptable amount of loss that's anticipated? Why? What is three depredations out of 300, 3 out of 3,000, 3, I guess I don't fully understand how that approach, how you reach that approach, and what the goals are for healthy wolf and livestock interaction. What does that look like?
It's a good question. I think the answer to that question depends on who you ask. If you were to ask one of the producers, I think their answer is 0, would be that the goal. They don't want to lose any of their stock to a predator on the landscape. Reasonably, we have mountain lions and bears already on the landscape, coyotes. We're already losing some livestock to some of these other creatures as it is. I think the overall, what the norm is, the societal norm between what's reasonable for a producer, what's reasonable for the communities, what's reasonable for CPW as the management agency, that's to be determined. We will probably have to wait this one out and see over the upcoming years what is reasonable. This is the first round of some of that locally here. We have some of that. We have 4 years worth of data in some of these other counties, Jackson County, Grand County, other places in the state. But we haven't established the norm yet on what that might be. I think we're seeing that initial threshold, and just going through that is all new for us. So everything is change, and that's where it's uncomfortable for everybody. But we're still trying to establish what is an acceptable version of livestock loss. And so that's where, to be determined. I don't know if you guys have a better answer, a different answer, but
and I guess I just wonder if what we're experiencing in Pickens County is beyond what was experienced in other counties that were earlier in the reintroduction effort.
For some of the other populations, there's some nuance to that too. This particular group of animals here is a pack. It's a pack of multiple animals. What we saw in depredations in Jackson County initially, this was going back 4 years ago, that was 2 animals that subsequently ended up reproducing, but it was still 2 animals caring for dependent offspring. This is a couple generations of animals caring for supposed dependent offspring, but there's more than 2 animals that are involved in that. So there's a social dynamic too that kind of is captured by this pack that's a little bit different from some of those other ones that were 2 animals trying to start a pack, and it was really just a breeding male and a breeding female that were working in concert to try to keep that pack alive. This one, we've already have additional supplemental help from other members of that pack. So it does change that a little bit because the capabilities of a pack of animals is different than that of 1 or 2 animals, especially when the breeding male and female, one of them is typically tethered to the den site or to direct care of those pups while the other one's off hunting. So right now, just straight up numbers, it's comparable. I mean, what we're seeing for overall numbers, we're in the same ballpark. What is a little bit different here is that we have a policy that states the 3 and 30. We did not have that in Jackson County. We didn't have that at the time in Grand County. That's something different. And that was at the request of, because we didn't have it, it was proclaimed that there was a need to develop that. So it's been developed. This is the first year. This is the first time that the agency's been implementing that because of this new policy.
Thank you. Other questions right now? Francie?
Well, I was just going to address your question. I know that in Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, the depredation rate is less than 1% by wolves. And so I would say right now in Picton, we're above 1%. But it's a new situation, and these animals are adapting, and they were already had already been introduced to livestock, so it's a little bit different than looking at the whole western
What
region.
is the 1%?
How many animals is that?
Like, is that 1% of the livestock population?
1% of
or
all
1%?
the cattle livestock. That's a
I
cattle
see,
number.
okay.
I think the number of cattle, if I'm not mistaken, is around 30 million. I'm not positive about that number, but I am positive about the 1%. And then when they did a study in the Oregon and western Idaho area, they found that there was more depredation from lions than from wolves. But we're not at a state of equilibrium here because it's also new for the wolves. They've just been relocated. And so they're not accustomed yet to the prey that they could have in this area anyway. So
Sure.
I would say we're well over the 1%, but that's enough said.
Francie?
No, I'm
Sorry,
Patty.
Patty.
You're back on track, though.
I know. Can't promise I won't do
I
it
have a
again.
question and then I have a comment, so bear with me. The question is, I know there's been talk about relocating again this pack that we have that's our troublemakers, we'll call them, which I can relate to. And is that a possibility? I know there's been extensive discussion. There was discussion just yesterday. Is that possible, either relocating the entire or a portion? I know there's concerns about splitting them up. So can you help me with broadening my horizons?
The topic of translocation of this pack has been mentioned as an agency. It's something that's still being considered. No decisions have been made, yes or no, on that one. There are complexities there. You're right that if we were to do so, we'd want to do it as an entire family group. Wolves are extremely, extremely intelligent creatures, and they've already been captured once. Actually, as a matter of fact, they've been captured twice because they were captured to be brought to the state. They learn so fast that you really only get a time or two trying to attempt that till they figure out how to mitigate that and not get caught again. So even then, we're starting to already whittle down what our options and opportunities are to successfully live capture these animals. So we'd have to get kind of creative on some of that stuff. And then the other thing that we'd have to weigh into that whole equation is whether is that actually, just like we would with a bear. Are we taking an animal to an appropriate location with appropriate habitat with a meaningful chance of survival there? Or are we putting the problem someplace else where either the animal doesn't have a chance or we're putting them in somebody else's backyard and making it their problem? All things that are being evaluated, just conceptually and trying to figure out what that is. With bears, we can kind of qualify and quantify what's appropriate bear habitat, and we know what the known numbers are in those areas. We don't have that same playbook for wolves. We don't yet know what habitats in this state wolves would consider to be appropriate. As humans, we can take a look at it and say, yeah, I think that looks pretty good, but we can be wrong as easy as we can be right. So,
Well, I think there's talk amongst the people in Pickens County and maybe elsewhere that the pack was moved here and it was a troubled pack and we got a problem. And I know that that's been a point. So I think there's a lot more to learn. I believe that we should have let nature take its course with reintroduction and not have man intervene. But that being said, the voters did approve it. Pickens County voters did approve it. But, the vote was statewide, and I know that the Front Range, especially the Denver area, was really supportive of it. My joke has been we should reintroduce them into Washington Park, but I don't think that's an acceptable location. That being said, I just want TPW, all of you and your peers, to know that I feel that you are in a really tough position to follow through with the state mandate, the voter mandate, and to do what's right for the wolves. And that being said, that I know it's hard to go in and remove a member of a pack, or when you have to put any bear or anything down, that's not easy for you guys. And I want you to know that I think this board feels that for you, that it's not an easy part of your job, that's for sure. That being said, I also feel for the wolves. We plucked them out of their environment, drugged them up, put them in a helicopter or some kind of transport, brought them someplace else, studied them before we let them loose. And, for me, the stress and trauma to those animals, is it really worth this forcible reintroduction? Again, that being said, the voters did vote for it, but you have to have a feeling and a heart for those animals that have been relocated to a foreign place and then relocated again and then again and, drugged somewhere in between to get them here, and, their fear of what might happen next. And I knew they were smart. I had, the bears are really clever, but knowing, and the lions are clever, and, the animals in this world are very clever and are learning how to deal with man, maybe not in ways we appreciate as much as or ways we can really address. But I want to thank you guys for the job that you do and the difficulties you're facing right now, especially in light of the wolf reintroduction.
Thanks, Patty. And I would note 62% of Pickens County voters supported introduction. I imagine that would be maybe lower now, but
Yeah.
It's quite high. Jeffrey.
Thank you. I want to ask you a couple sort of producer questions and start off by saying the report on the dispatch of 2405 is excellent. So I appreciate that, 10 pages, and what I thought it did well was it didn't get into the pro or con. It just said the producers are doing the following, they're following our advice, and I really appreciate sort of the balance in that report. So the first question, I've got four, if that's okay.
Please, yeah.
So the first question is, with the dispatching of 2405, is there then a shot clock before you could address 2401? Because that seems like, I don't want to say it's the next obvious step, but do you have to go back to the administrative decision and have chronic depredation again, or the shot clock's open and you could still act on 2401?
So it still remains open. I mean, the way that policy's written is that it takes that initial event of three confirmed depredations in 30 days, one of which has to be clear and convincing, to trigger it. Once that occurs, it authorizes us. It doesn't mandate that we have to, but it gives us the opportunity to take lethal action, lethal removal action, and which we did. Now we're in an evaluation period. If that evaluation period, the whole point of the evaluation period is to determine whether that lethal removal actually effectively changed the behavior of the pack. If it's determined that it did not and that the problem still exists, then utilizing the same initial shot clock, we could still take additional lethal action if necessary. Now, obviously, that's where, to my comment earlier, we're in the meantime, trying to initiate as many other deterrent mechanisms, everything else to mitigate any issues, so that while we're evaluating things, we can look at it and reasonably say, yeah, there's a minimal risk of anything. At that point, that would be finalized. Anything subsequent would have to have a new shot clock start.
Understood. So the follow-up, really again from a producer lifestyle standpoint, with the introduction of the range riders, have we seen, since rangers generally can't work 24 hours a day, have we seen a change in animal behavior or anything since the chronic depredation window that would say the introduction of the range riders came in post chronic depredation and it's influencing the activity on the ground and we've got better protection in place than we did when this report was written?
Yeah, they're definitely, we're seeing minimal changes, I think, in wolf activity. The range riders have definitely helped alleviate a lot of that late night stress on these animals for sure. You know, when we first addressed the producers and talked to them about it, they weren't quite sure how to wrap their head around it because they were under, I think they felt that they still had to be out there, but wanted to let them know that this is your time to go home, be with your family, take a rest, you know, let our folks go out there and do what they can do to help supplement your time. Granted, they were still out there a lot, you know, probably more than what they wanted to be because it's their livestock and they care about it and they want to do absolutely everything they can to protect them. So their mindset is if we have two people out there and they can be a third, that's more eyes, more boots on the ground, you know, more presence to help, you know, push that off. So there has been some movements for sure, but like Matt said, we're also in that monitoring phase too. You know, we can't range ride forever, right? So are these wolves going to move? Is our presence there going to push them off? And even though it has caused them to move a little bit, are we comfortable with that distance? Do we need more distance? You know, what does that all look like? And at the time, the cattle were on private property. Now we're moving into public allotments where they were kind of moving. So, you know, what does that look like now? How far are we going to continue to push them, and where are they going to go?
And then,
Go ahead, yeah.
Again, from a producer standpoint, the literature describes and management describes that the producer will be made financially whole through the introduction of wolves. And so it seems like a lot of the conversation's been about depredation and not really about the stress, loss of weight, loss of birth, or changes in birthing. And I'm wondering, how are the ranchers being compensated fully as per the management plan that says they're at financial whole? Because it seems like the hoops, chronic depredation, we can decide within 24 hours, put a blue tarp over it, and say, yes, that's a wolf kill. The other part, are the producers properly getting compensated for other sort of softer losses, if you will?
It's a good question. And specific to wolf, it's different for our agency than bear, lion has ever been. We do still compensate for direct loss. So animals killed, we confirm it, yes, we will pay you for that specific animal. In addition, under our wolf damage plans, we also, as an agency, have authorized payment for some of those indirect losses, which is ratio claims. So there's some of that we understand, you know, we won't be able to find every animal that ends up being lost to wolves. So there's two different claims that are available to producers. That's where we're working with these ones currently, in that one of them is available where if they have a confirmed loss, then an additional 7 animals, they can claim an additional 7 animals that are never found. The other one speaks directly to the weaning weights and the pregnancy rates.
Thank you.
So we can compensate them if they have decreased rates and they have a track record of showing where their historical levels were at, then we will compensate them based on the fact that if historically they had 80% pregnancy and then this year they went and did preg checks and it went down to 65, then the agency would compensate them. And when I say the agency, you know, through our game damage program, would compensate them for that 15% that they ended up losing.
Thank you.
And that pregnancy issue is related to stress, increased stress. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Is there anything you need from the county that you're not getting? So turning the table back, in terms of what else can we do as a community? I mean, I feel the stress in the community. I feel the stress up Capitol Creek today. And again, the reason why I think this report's excellent, because everyone's saying this is the role of producer, this is the role of the wolf, this is the role of, it's really well done. And so I don't,
I appreciate that question. That's an awesome question. I appreciate you mentioning that and just being willing to participate and jump in with everybody on us on that. But I don't have a great answer on exactly what that is. What I will say is that from the very beginning, and this isn't specific to wolves, but definitely talking about wolves, that we've received support from the county and all varieties of different, from the commission, from sheriff, from all aspects of just participation in discussions. This discussion here today, it's great that you guys are willing and open to listen to us, to ask questions of us when you have questions, instead of going out and talking about it elsewhere. Making sure that you are informed and you are asking a question from us on what we know and what we don't know and what we are trying to do, so that you guys aren't making inappropriate assumptions on anything. So if you guys can just continue to do that, we'll show up. Every time you ask us to show up, I promise that our staff will be there to answer your questions and engage with you on that one. I would ask if you guys see opportunities to host additional any kind of public information sessions. If there's opportunities, it doesn't even have to be countywide. If there's community specific ones in whether it's the Capitol Creek Snowmass area or Old Snowmass area or anywhere else that you are hearing a need or a calling for something, if you can make sure that we are aware of what those are, then again, we're more than willing to sit down with whomever those publics are and participate in something with them. That's realistically, our communities have been pretty good about that. I mean, our producers, we've sat down, the number of times that we've gone there and sat down with them to discuss things, it's admirable. They don't have to open their doors in order to say, hey, come talk with us. They're frustrated enough, I would understand if they didn't. They continue to call us up and say, we would love for you to come over here and sit down and chat with us more. As long as we can continue doing that, we'll see our way through some of this. But that goes on all ends of everything. So I would just ask if you guys, through your feelers, and you guys are very well connected, if you come across opportunities and see places for us to participate, let us know.
Francie.
I just have a really quick question. Are there any wolves over in the Thompson Divide area yet? None?
There's been some movement through, but nothing sticking. It's just see some of those big movement patterns, and they'll move through, but nothing's stuck there yet.
Great.
So I'm wondering, what is the level of depredation that's been experienced? I mean, you said it's above 1%. I don't know
Under
how many
1%,
cattle that we have in Pickens County, so I don't know what scope that number might be. But, what is the loss right now in 6 months of this introduction? Can you say?
He doesn't want to.
I don't know the total number of cattle in Pickens County either, so I can't put a percentage to that. I definitely say it's more than what they want for sure. Mm-hmm. Yep, and we've had confirmed, we've had unconfirmed, just based on our investigations that we've had out there. So, it depends who you talk to, how many actual related depredations they are, and
I recommend that we appoint Francie and Jeffrey to go out and count every cows in Pickens County.
Yeah,
You could go with them. That's a quorum. We'd have to publicly
opine a little. Balance is really the name of the game here, and you all are trying to balance quite a lot. I guess I just wonder. I'm like, some of what my expectation, I guess, was with wolf reintroduction is that behaviors would need to change for a number of reasons. What?
Whose?
Well, the animals, in response to the wolves on the landscape, number one, just from, I guess, observing what they've observed in other parts of the country with promoting moving deer out of the forest, promoting undergrowth, new populations of smaller animals, all these sort of things that one cascades into another to help create a healthy wolf ecosystem. And so I guess I just I wonder how our actions collectively are helping to both facilitate that and balance the harm that's being experienced by people. Because if we can get the wolves living where they should be and eating the things that they should be, should we be promoting the decisions that would facilitate that more quickly? Francie.
Yeah, there is a group in Idaho called the Idaho Wolf Project, and they've done a lot of work. It's mostly sheep, not cattle, but they've done a lot of work with changing how they move their sheep and how they operate with their sheep, and they've had incredible success. And they've had, I think, in the last few years, maybe one depredation, whereas their neighbors have had like 30 per ranch. I mean, those aren't the exact numbers, but it's close. And it's pretty interesting to read. They do some things that wouldn't work at all, for instance, in our forest allotments with cattle, but there are groups that are working on how to live with wolves.
Sure, yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's just, like, how do we continue to have healthy cattle out in the forest and promote the Cascades for a healthy wolf population to leave them alone?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
But I'm not sure that it's antithetical to wolf behavior to not eat a big fat cow that's right there near you. I mean, it's like, that'd be some interesting training.
Are you promoting vegetarian wolves?
Anyhow, go ahead.
I did want to make one comment, just specific, came up in context of that, and just to clarify, we have already, just in working with this local population of wolves, they are feeding on natural prey sources as well. It's not strictly on livestock. We've gone through and monitored, and there are scat piles that contain deer, elk hair. They are definitely feeding on natural prey sources. We've had anecdotal reports of watching them pursuing elk, so we know that they are still doing things that we would expect a wolf to do, feeding on the things that we would expect a wolf to feed on. So it's not strictly a livestock-based diet.
Great. Other questions? Jeffrey?
So the follow-up, Matt, then would be, are you providing carcasses as well?
At this time, no. We have not done any of that. Right now, what we're kind of hoping, you living in the area, this is the time of year when a lot of those elk would start moving in higher elevation, which is actually probably good. If we can get the wolves to follow them, great. We're hoping that the timelines match up, because if they do have dependent young, those dependent young probably can't travel as quick as those elk can. And so maybe we'll find a way to get them to keep up. But that's part of that monitoring that we're hoping kind of meshes with what we're doing with some of our other efforts just to protect livestock. So that's the goal.
Cool.
I just can't even imagine the workload that you guys have taken on with this compared to what it was before. Like, you didn't have enough to do before.
All right, any last questions
Those are you
on
guys.
wolves? And I'll just reiterate Jeffrey's offer for ongoing collaboration on this topic. Okay, thank you. We have a few other topics that we were hoping to just get some quick updates on. Management at Beaver Lake, the Sam Caudill boat ramp, and aquatic nuisance species. And I'll let you all decide what order you wish to take those in.
Either way, I can give you a brief update on Beaver Lake. Not sure what you're looking for, more the augmentation or just the general overall.
Both are great, thank you.
Beaver
There were some
Lake.
restrictions on use recently and things like that.
Beaver Lake, our state wildlife area, east of Marble in Gunnison County there. I guess it's managed as a state wildlife area, so meant for wildlife-related recreation, wildlife viewing, fishing, not some of the other uses that were occurring there, and uses that we were seeing across the state on our state wildlife areas in general. In 2020, we went with the requirement of having to have some sort of license to be on the property, a fishing license, hunting license, wildlife area access pass at the time. Come around 2023, we saw that the uses really didn't decrease. The undesired uses that we were wanting to decrease didn't happen. In 2023, there was a working group that forwarded a suite of regulation changes across the board on all of our state wildlife areas. So it wasn't just Beaver Lake, but a lot of them that had lakes ended up with restrictions, especially if they were for fishing. It was like no craft going on the water unless actively being fished from. We were trying to get back to the intended purpose and uses of what the state wildlife area was for. So going forward, we're the second year of that, or going on to the third. Primarily it's an education piece down there. you need to have these things, but you're not just taking your paddleboard out there to recreate. This is a wildlife area meant for fishing. We got lots of complaints regarding that. You know, when a fisherman pulls into the parking lot, he couldn't even find a place to park versus, you know, and then there's 50 paddleboarders on the lake and they couldn't even throw a line in the water. So that's where it ended up, and we put those regulations in place. Come this year, it is actually seems like it's slowed stuff down. You know, there's still people going down there to use it, and you know, but historically on a holiday or on a weekend when the parking lot would be full and 40 paddleboarders, I was down there yesterday and there was like 5 fishermen, you know, that use, and the paddleboarders weren't there. So that is going forward. On the other piece, the augmentation piece, you know, historically we've had many conversations with West Divide Water Conservancy District on the augmentation up there. They've been looking for a augmentation source in the Crystal Valley. You know, we've been approached multiple times about looking at Beaver Lake as that source. In 2023, more conversations with them. We ended up doing a bathymetric survey. Basically discovered that, you know, we had 72.5 acre feet decreed or water rights for Beaver Lake. During that bathymetric survey, they discovered about 28 acre feet more. So we filed on those through the water court and are working with West Divide. So that additional 28 acre feet of water will be used as an augmentation source. What that will allow us to do primarily, a couple of things, is when the cameo call comes on downstream, and historically we would have to release water to meet our depletions for evaporation. We won't have to do that at this point just for the cameo call. West Divide, well, I say that's the intended. We don't have a lease agreement with them yet. That is still in the works, but they would use water out of Root Eye to cover those depletions instead of releasing out of Beaver Lake. Now, when a call comes onto the Crystal, then we would have to release water downstream for that one. But that will allow us to keep water in the lake, keep temperatures cooler, provide better fish habitat, and keep that water upstream for when that call comes on for the Crystal.
Questions, Francie?
So is that 28 CFS that you filed on, did you file on that for in-stream flow as the?
It was not for in-stream flow. It was for the same purposes, you know, fish. I'd have to go back and look at it all, but for in-stream and then also augmentation uses. We filed on it. There was, I don't want to say an objector to it, but I think as of May 30th, they were working out the details to have an agreement between those, so we could start working on a formal lease agreement and move forward with it.
Okay, I also have a question about something you said earlier about sort of the purpose of state park lands.
Not a state park, state
CPW.
wildlife area.
What?
Not a state park, a state wildlife area. There's a distinct
But
difference.
isn't Paonia also?
It is a state park.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering that, so state wildlife areas,
Yes.
recreation is not use?
It can be as long as it aligns with the intended purpose of wildlife-related recreation, i.e. fishing, wildlife viewing, other issues. But the paddleboard party crowd was not an intended use on those parcels.
But there are lots of paddleboarders who are viewing wildlife, and that's why they're paddleboarding.
I could argue a different context, but I will agree with you. But you and I both know that's not the issue that's going on at Beaver Lake.
And they're not
Not at
fishing
Beaver
from their
Lake, but I am concerned about the needing a hunting license to access our waters.
Well, for that, if you're accessing a state wildlife area, we are requiring that to be a stipulation. We don't get state tax funding, so we are asking that people pay into the system somehow and show that, you know, if they're going to play there, they need to pay to play.
Oh, so that's the intent of it, to have revenues
have-
for maintenance?
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
That's been in
Since
effect
we
for a
don't get
couple
that tax funding, we're relying on the general public that's using it
I see.
to pay into the system for us.
It is an interesting disguise of that it has to be fishing or hunting, though. Why can't it just be a use fee instead of a license to kill
It
animals?
can't. Well, it isn't. You have the state wildlife area access pass, which covers the same thing. We're just asking you to have one of the three things. If you naturally hunt or fish, you already have those things, right? If you just want to access the state wildlife area, you can buy a state wildlife area pass, do the same thing, and not be considered a hunter or fisherman.
Okay. And so if you have a state parks pass, does that count or is that different?
It
Okay.
does not.
All right, thanks.
I also have one. Were you next and then
Well, I'm just
Jeffrey?
concerned, it's like, it's an interesting conversation. This is in a lake that's in another county. I know it flows into our watershed, the water from that. I just want to make sure we have time to get to aquatic nuisance species, which does, it affects rudi, which I think is partially in our county, and I want to make sure we have time to get to that, that's all.
Okay.
I want to make sure we have time to get to the one before that, so.
Jeffrey.
Is that in the county?
I
Sam
can,
Cuddill?
I can
need a lot
table
of
mine,
money
but I'm going
for
to
it.
throw it out there, which is, can you share any impact of federal cuts on CPW and your work over the summer? And again, I could table it till after ANS if need be.
That is not on our agenda, so I am going to ask if
Fair
we
enough.
can table that to give, because
Fair enough.
each of us have little projects on here that are near and dear to us. And so the
I'd
Beaver
rather
Lake,
hear
which was
about
near and
ANS.
dear to me
Rescued.
as a user of Beaver Lake, and also because Pickens County has long been in our own conversations relative to solving the augmentation need along the Crystal, and are recently starting to be more collaborative with West Divide on problem solving around that. And so, because you guys are all working together, I think it would maybe be great if there's opportunity for broader collaboration on trying to solve that problem, because we appreciate your attention to it as well. If that's helpful, I think. Okay. All right. So why don't we give some time to the Sam Caudill boat ramp and then ANS?
Awesome. Well, I'll jump in
I
on the
think we did help fund that, and that's
Correct.
part of our
Funded it
interest
significant. John, how
here,
much
and-
did we put in? Healthy
Sam was a
Rivers and
resident.
Streams put into Sam Cuddill?
Yes.
I do not.
Was significant.
Where is it?
It's in Garfield County. It's, I mean, it depends on who you, who you talk to, what it's called. I mean, Blackbridge, West Bank,
Big to Black.
I mean, it goes by a whole myriad of names, all referencing the exact same boat ramp. So this is the one that's downstream of Carbondale, downstream of the confluence with the Crystal River, but it's super popular boat ramp. CPW owned the boat ramp here in the last, 6 years ago? That we ended up purchasing the property immediately upstream of that. The goal of that purchase was to give us more space for parking, for just flow of traffic trying to get in and out of that boat ramp. It was a rough boat ramp to begin with, so we were trying to improve that facility. And fast forward, and Pickens County Healthy Rivers stepped up and said, "Hey, we've got some options, some opportunities." So it was a unique partnership between CPW, had our own internal funding there. Pickens County came to the table with some funding. Garfield County came to the table with some additional funding. And then the Roaring Fork Fishing Guide Alliance actually came through and contributed an additional quantity of money, all to pitch into the same effort in improving that facility there. I'm happy to say that after a very long process of trying to plan things, coordinate all the different funding sources, everything else, and working this past spring, that project is almost completely complete. It's complete enough where it's open to the public. There's still a few fine-tuned things that we're trying to iron out on the last end of it, but we're looking to host some sort of a grand reopening of that facility here, inclusive of Pickens County and the other counties, the other entities. We're trying to target something here later in July, beginning of August, that time frame. We were trying to get away from high flows this year and not do it here in June. And Mother Nature played a little trick on us there, and we never really tested the facility on high flows this year. I think we've seen the high flows, and they're not really high flows. So there are some things there that are still to be determined on what high flows will look like and how they will impact some of that infrastructure, how that design is going to respond to it. But I'll say that from a user side of it, our heavy use months are still to come. and so we're going to be monitoring that. As of right now, though, the general flow of the facility, we've received a lot of comments from the public, most of which have been positive and productive. They're just appreciative that it is a much more user-friendly facility. It has helped to kind of increase the flow of traffic through there. More than anything, it's definitely made it a safer environment for people to load and unload boats and craft from that site. They're not doing it on the county road. They're now able to pull off of the county road out of the flow of traffic in order to launch a craft on the river. So we're still working on that. One of the things that's still hanging in the balance is any kind of a landscaping in there. We still have some plantings to get in place there to hold some of that dirt work and some of the other structures in place. We're working toward that, but honestly, right now, it's been a good thing. The one thing that was asked of us to provide in this brief also was just kind of the overall management. That stems into a much larger discussion that I'm not going to go into the details here. But what I'll say is that in the near future, working with Roaring Fork Conservancy and some of these other interest groups, working with Pitkin County and Gary and Open Space and the Roaring Fork Outdoor Coalition, we're looking to try to host some sort of a user survey on there in order to better understand not just that boat ramp, but the Roaring Fork River as a greater body of water, on what are maybe some of our resource limitations are, our user needs are, our user limitations, capacity, if any of that exists, and just determine, we could throw more boat ramps on the river. Is that serving us well in managing that resource? Is that counterproductive? We've heard arguments from both sides of the table, and we're directly involved in it because we manage two of the busiest boat ramps on the Roaring Fork River. So we're just hoping to get people at the table. Pitkin County would obviously be a player, Garfield County, Eagle County, and then there's a myriad of different boat ramps, both private and public, in between here and the Colorado River confluence, trying to get everybody to sit down and discuss what our goals and objectives are. Right now, arguably, that we're not all operating on the same page, and just make sure we're facing the same direction so that whatever we're managing toward, we're doing it as a greater group.
Great. Patty?
Yeah, I want to thank you. We used it early in the spring when they were just beginning some of the landscaping. It was amazing. The previous boat ramp was really rocky, and I mean it in every way, shape, and form. There were stories taken out. We were putting it in a raft, and it was amazing. It was safe for the kids. It was safe for the adults, the traffic flow. Then I drove by when we had a traffic detour the other day, and it was in high use, and it was the flow. There weren't people lining up on the county road up above. It was amazing, and so I'm looking forward to a ribbon cutting. I think we will be there in the Clapper family turnout numbers. It is just a huge amenity and such a great improvement. We also want to extend thanks to Rick Neely, not our Rye Neely, but to his dad for helping facilitate the use of what used to be his privately owned property, and helping to see this enhancement to our use of the river. So thank you guys a lot. It's great.
Francie?
Yeah, just a question.
Sorry. John had
sorry,
the
go ahead,
number
John.
that we
So to your earlier
contributed.
question, Patty, we have so far put in $742,484, and we're expecting another $20,000 or $30,000 for landscaping.
Great.
Thank you. Francie?
Yeah, mine's just a quick question. So is the takeout still in the current, or did you create an eddy or something?
No, there's an eddy, and it's
Oh, there
it's
is.
still
Yeah,
on
it's
the
great.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to go
It's-
down and
there-
check
There's
it
a
out.
big eddy now.
Oh, that's
that,
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that takeout was hairy.
And it's facing downstream with the flow instead of facing upstream, where if you miss it, now you're on a
You're
ride to
gone.
Glenwood.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a beach
Exactly.
area for the kids to kind of hang while the parents are doing what parents need to do.
that's
Yeah,
great.
Francie, you would really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. And let's talk about aquatic nuisance species, please. If you guys still have a few minutes. Do we all still have a few minutes to run over? Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
certainly.
Thank
So aquatic nuisance species, ANS, it's a topic that, we've participated through RWAPA, through our operations up at RUDI. It's been on CPW's radar. Our agency hosts the program that manages that in the state of Colorado. At RUDI, we have mandatory checks launching, taking craft on and off the water. We've had that in place for a while now, and that's been a preventative mechanism to keep any aquatic nuisance species from establishing in that body of water. It's been successful. I mean, we've monitored a bunch of things. We've decontaminated a lot of vessels that otherwise were infested coming off of primarily Lake Powell and trying to put on here locally. The one thing that's relevant and of recent is that here within the past week and a half, our folks in our A&S program, they do annual monitoring across the state in different bodies of water that are adjacent to or are at high risk. And one of those bodies of water is the Colorado River. Well, they've been monitoring that, and here a year ago, we had zebra mussels that were confirmed in Highline Lake down in Loma, Colorado, and they discovered that those mussels probably didn't come from Highline, maybe or maybe not, but there were mussels upstream of that in the Colorado River itself, over in that DeBeck Canyon area. They found them in the canal that led over there, and they found them in the river itself. Fast forward, they increased monitoring further upstream, and they were monitoring all the way up to Glenwood Canyon here, and they got confirmation back from the labs that they found zebra mussel veligers, positive confirmation of that in a site over in Newcastle there on the south side of the river. So we know that there's a presence somewhere as high up as Newcastle. They're continuing efforts to expand things up into the Roaring Fork River, the Eagle River, and further up the Colorado River proper. So they're looking at a lot of waters that might have contributed to some of that. Veligers are just they're kind of the stage, the movement stage of that species where they're not attached to anything and they kind of move around. But it is, does raise some other concerns and suspicions. So they're definitely increasing efforts there. One of the things that, speaking of root eye, is right now all of our inspection efforts are isolated to the motorized craft on that water. It's at the main boat ramp there by the dam, and any motorized users have to go in, have to get their craft inspected before putting on, and then whenever they come off, they're inspected again, and if they're clean, they get a seal on there as they go to another body of water. We have not been inspecting non-motorized users. So anybody putting on, paddle boards, canoes, other non-motorized craft on there, they can kind of go freely wherever. Obviously, they can put on not just at the boat ramp, but those craft have not been inspected. They can also carry some of these into other bodies of water, especially if some of those craft are left there and mussels were to attach, or some of that water with veligers in it were to be associated, contained within that craft, and they were launched elsewhere, they could be spread. So right now, our efforts are expanding beyond. So we're geographically looking to expand monitoring efforts. Locally here, though, we're asking all of our partners, start spreading the word that even the non-motorized craft, any river users that are using rafts, canoes, kayaks, everything else, we're wanting people to go through the whole thing. If people have questions, they can visit our statewide website. We have a big blurb up there on the clean, drain, and dry, the process, the procedures, the protocols on what people should be paying attention to. We recognize a lot of our non-motorized users, a lot of our river runners, they're not just sticking to the Roaring Fork. They're also running other rivers in Colorado and outside of the state. So we're just trying to make people aware of what that is and what the vulnerabilities are should they decide to go anywhere else, because it is a problem. Even outside of zebra mussel world, we've also had here, not in Pitkin County, but in the area that we manage, we've got New Zealand mud snail population starting up on the Eagle River in Brush Creek, going up out of the Eagle River. That those were detected here 2 years ago. So they're there. There's nothing much we can do to get rid of them. We're just trying to manage for them and trying to make sure that they're not disruptive to any of our other local native species. So aquatic nuisance species they're a thing. They're a problem. They could potentially be a much worse problem. I think right now that preventative measure, that's where we're at in that preventative phase, and just trying to get word out amongst people so that they're educated on what they can do.
Thank you, Matt. Yes.
Education I'll be really quick because I know you have, education to our outfitters who don't have motorized vehicles, who have the rafts, the kayaks, the stand-ups, the whatever else. Have we been looking at them to give them information about, here guys, heads up?
So we have, when that when word of that came out initially, it was forwarded on to like our Fishing Guide Alliance, our commercial users. That encompasses probably 85% of a lot of our permitted fishing guides on the Roaring Fork, Colorado rivers, and Eagle rivers. So they know about it. We were unable to make their annual meeting, but we have already solicited time on their upcoming membership meeting just to get it in front of their board to get word out amongst their membership. There are other groups out there that don't belong to any formal organization, and that's where we're looking for help. You know, we're planning on reaching out to some of the local shops that rent some of these craft, some of the other whitewater companies, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and get word out however we can.
I'll reach out to my son and see that he gets the word out and see what he can do to help, because I know he'd be willing to help you out. Thanks.
Just wanted to clarify, a non-motorized, so if somebody brings a 20-foot sailboat up to Rudai, they still have to get inspected, right? If they're coming in with a sailboat?
If they're going through that other dock on the other side, not the main boat ramp,
Then they
no,
don't
there
have
is
to.
no inspection
Okay,
on the
so
other
there's-
side
that's
there.
That's a problem. The other thing that I think I heard from a CPW guy, the aquatic nuisance species guy who came and spoke to us at Rawapa, probably last, I don't know, January or something, that fishing waders even could be an issue, and that it's not just watercraft, but if your fishing waders are holding water from your most recent trip, that could be a vehicle for moving villagers, or whatever the next shape form is for the snails.
God, hopefully they
Mussels.
dried out their waders, right?
I don't know, but that's something that, but also, I also wanted to say, Rawapa is very proud, and we all contribute to that, of course, that we've managed to keep the snails out of Rudai Reservoir, and they've discovered many craft that had them coming in. So the program really works, and it's effective, and we've kept the snails out of Rudai as a result for all these years. As opposed to many reservoirs that are showing the mussels now. So hopefully we'll just keep that track record going.
Thank you. Have you, sorry, I'll ask a question then. I'll
No,
to
you go ahead.
Francie. Have you tested any standalone lakes for them?
They have done a number of them. Most of the testing was focused, because of what they found a year ago, most of that testing was focused downstream of us over Garfield County and west into Mesa County. They were testing a lot of private ponds and lakes. It's interesting because they were requesting, just voluntary access, and a lot of those owners were hesitant on, well, what if you find something here? What does that mean for me? So we're still working on access, and right now we're focusing beyond that. I mean, we're still looking at some of those lakes there, but there are some privately owned ponds and lakes that, if people, I guess the word to throw out to the public would be that if somebody has something that they want to know more about, we're not looking to point a finger at anybody and cast blame right now. We're trying to just help the cause and help prevent a spread of something. So if anybody comes across anything that is suspicious or that they want an answer to, please reach out to us and help us to monitor some of these infestations. And even then, we have tools that we might be able to help them as a private lake owner manage for whatever that might be in their body of water. So there's obviously some of these that occur in the Roaring Fork Valley, and then we're looking at some of those up near Dotsero and further up the Colorado River.
Great, thank you. All right, Francie, last question. And
How long are the mussels dormant? I mean, how long can they be out of water and still be viable?
That's a good question.
I mean, if you go like 3 months from one lake to another, are you still carrying?
If it's fully dry, whatever they were in, typically that's a whole protocol is clean, drain, dry. So as long as they're dry, I think it's like 72 hours usually kills any
Okay.
of the.
However, different species have different time frames too, and so while that's applicable to some of the mussel species, some of the other, like the mud snail species, it's different. So there's, for mud snails, when we're disinfecting all of our aquatic crews and everything, we're spraying down with a disinfectant in order to kill anything that's on waders or boots or otherwise. So.
All right, thank you. You good?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much for
Great, it
coming
was
and
great
meeting
to
with
have you
us
guys.
today.
We got like a room full
I
here.
know, and bringing
Thank
all
you
your
guys for being
staff.
here,
This is
all of you.
great. And again, we are partners with you and are here in any way we can help, and appreciate you coming and helping answer some of these tough questions for us today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
Thank you
I'll let
guys so
Tracy
much.
know I saw you.
Thanks for coming.
Done.
All right. We are running a little behind. Are folks okay for us to do our special meeting, or would you like a break?
So let's do the special meeting first. I think it'd be
Great.
perfect.
Oh,
If that's
and then
okay.
You have to go, so.
I'm gonna go soon, but
Do you
not
need a
quite.
motion to
should
get out?
So, no, I am gonna call a special meeting, for the purposes of having a one-read informal reading on a resolution approving submission of a grant application to the Department of Local Affairs for the PACT program and Partners Crisis Intervention Training Project, and they were under a quick time period to, submit this grant, and so that's why we are going to be holding a special meeting and voting on this resolution during a work session. Hi.
Hi, yes. Thank you for having me. Raleigh Backrack, the Mental Health Program Administrator with Pickens County Public Health and with the PAC program. We are here for a resolution approving the submission of a grant application to the Department of Local Affairs, also known as DOLA, for the PACT and Partners Crisis Intervention Training Project. Quick turnaround, we were kind of holding on applying for this as we were waiting for another grant opportunity to see what that outcome was. Spoiler alert, it was successful, so you'll probably be seeing me in a few months. That's a federal timeline pass through, but won't get into that. So just had to hold and make sure that we were requesting the appropriate funds. So with this grant, we would be seeking funding to bring CIT training. It stands for Crisis Intervention Team training to our local community partners. Specifically, we would be looking to expand this program by bringing a trainer locally to train the rest of our PACT program, any law enforcement partners who have not been trained in CIT, though that they do a pretty substantial job doing that, as well as dispatch, jail. We kind of open it up to some of our first responder folks. CIT, it's a nationally recognized 40-hour interactive training designed specifically for first responders to improving their ability to respond to individuals in behavioral health crises. We would be requesting $50,000.
How much?
50 for this training locally. That would mean we would be able to probably get 20 to 25 folks for a week-long training. Would be looking at the summertime to host it, probably at the school district. I believe we've done this maybe once before locally about 4 years ago, and we use the school district, so preferably when they're on summer vacation, so we could actually utilize the campus. And then we would also be having about 10K of that to some of our data tracking. What other questions? Yes.
Questions for any
We'd love
questions on
PACT.
this grant?
I know. Is there a question here?
Yeah, so.
No, I'm being very sarcastic.
As a
sarcastic.
requirement of the grant, we have to submit, vote on and approve.
I would
a
love to
resolution.
make a motion to approve. Do we need 2 readings, or is this
This
a
is an
single read?
informal
Informal?
resolution.
So to make a motion to approve an informal resolution to submit a grant application to DOLA for the PACT and Partners Crisis Intervention Training Project. I don't have my glasses.
Thank you both. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor,
Thank you.
please say aye.
Aye. Congrats on the other
Aye.
grant.
Raleigh,
Good luck on this
have
one.
it come through DocuSign, I'll sign it.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And I need a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks Patty, thanks Greg. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, and now we're back on time. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and we have a 15-minute break scheduled to and then we'll have some citizen board interviews. Do you want the full 15 minutes?
10.
Good with 10.
10? Okay, we'll come back at 2:55. Thank you all. right, welcome back, everyone, to the Pickens County Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, July 1st. We just had a short break, and now we're going to resume with citizen board interviews for the Citizen Grant Review Committee, as well as Planning and Zoning. And I will invite Charlotte Anderson up to talk about vacancies and how many interviews we have coming and all those great things. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, Charlotte. Ramona was scheduled to be first, but she's not here yet. But we do have Joan.
So we keep your mic on. She's red light on.
It's only been a few years, Charlotte, that you've been doing this.
She's just slowly taking things out of her brain, unpacking.
Okay, so I'll start over. Ramona Bruland is scheduled first, but she hasn't arrived yet. So we do have Joan Clark, who is applying for the Citizen Grant Review as well. So if you'd like to start with her, we can invite her up.
Okay, I think that works for us, right?
Works for me.
And can you just give us a overview, Charlotte, how many vacancies and all that?
Yes. So the Citizen Grant Review Committee has had several people just not be able to participate anymore on the board. And so Michael Miracle was the most recent person who resigned, and that leaves four vacancies. Normally, we would have a youth applicant, and at one point, the board agreed that one of those adult positions could also serve as a youth. But the outreach to the high school has not been very effective, and so we haven't had any youth applicants lately. And so Lisa Yorker is also here. She's our liaison for the Citizen Grant Review Committee, and she has requested that we go forward with 4 adult applicants, or fill those vacancies with adults, because they just seem to keep losing folks. So we have a total of 4 applicants, and we have 3 interviews today, and we'll have 1 next week as well.
Can I ask?
Yes, go
Has
ahead.
it closed, the application?
Yes.
And can I just go on to P&Z too? Is that closed also?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, welcome, Joan. Thank you for applying, and we're always really grateful for everyone who takes interest in our advisory boards. And I guess I'll just ask, are you familiar with the work of the Citizen Grant Review Committee?
Yes, I am. I've been following everything in Aspen since 1971.
Great.
So
Well, what we'll
care
do
very
is,
much about this.
Yeah, just invite you to tell us why you are interested in this appointment, and then we'll go around and have board members ask questions. These tend to be short conversations, and then after we have a chance to interview everyone, we let Charlotte know of our appointment decisions, and she'll stay in touch with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. This has been my community since 1971. I moved here and started working with Klaus Obermeyer. And Klaus is 105, and I'm still working for Klaus Obermeyer. We all are.
Yeah.
He was such an icon here. Also, I was studying political science and got very involved in politics and then architecture and community design. So when I met Stacey Stanley, we started dating, and he was mayor, the youngest mayor in the history of America at that time, 27 years old. And our bumper sticker was, "Do not Californicate Colorado," and we won. And I was there appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the next 10 years and wrote the first growth management plan. So I very, very much care about Aspen's values and being an activist and being here. He lived at the Pepke house. So I was with Mrs. Pepke for all of those years, which was the greatest joy of my life. She was so totally amazing. And when she was 75, we threw her birthday party at the Red Onion. And everyone in town got up and went, "Oh, Mrs. Pepke, Mrs. Pepke, Mrs. Pepke." And she got up and goes, "Wait a minute, don't you realize what we still have to do?" And I just sat there and go, "That's my girl." And when she passed, I just felt quite the blessing of all that she and her family, but particularly she as such an amazing woman with her vision and grace and generosity. You know, I was there as she started ACES and the Cardamons came, and we were all working together on the gardens and all of those things. So that's been in my heart. And I also worked with John Denver very closely. I was on his board of trustees and still am. Wherever John is, I take him wherever I go. People go, "Where are you from?" "Aspen, Colorado." "John Denver, Rocky Mountain High." "Buckminster Fuller." And so I'm just honored, and that's part of my DNA here today. So I'm just excited about Aspen's constant evolution of our culture and want to be as much as part of it as I can. I adore it. I love it. I love it.
All right, thank you, Joan. Are there questions?
Yeah.
Francie.
Hi, Joan.
Hi.
This is fun to see you here. How's the reef?
Yes, yes.
Good.
Yes. And we have a special in common also, because one of the things I did was Stacy and Dick Jackson and our group, we did a mountain climbing expedition in '79, Mount Himalchuli, to go to the Himalayas. And so I fell in love with Asia and didn't come back for a few years. I loved the Himalayas and also ended up in Bali and still go to Bali and work on the bamboo projects. And my bamboo family over there, my son, my stepson over there, Arif, came to CRMS.
No, that's it.
And for the last 2 years of his life, and went back to Bali. It's just rocking the bamboo. But his heart is here too.
Yeah.
And
So he went to school with my kids. And,
Yes.
And Joan and I discovered each other just a few months ago. Which was
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I love your Aspen history. Thank you for sharing that with us. It was definitely, a glimpse into the past. And you mentioned all the same people that I love about Aspen. So it would be great to have you on this. I think your history of Aspen and all of the different organizations with Aspen make you a really good candidate for this. So I look forward to moving this on.
Thank you.
Okay, Francie.
No,
Patty.
I'm Patty. I should start wearing my name.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. What I appreciate about you, I believe, is that you're so passionate about our community and so willing to, as proven by your past history, to get involved and wanting to continue your involvement. But specific to this grant opportunity, which is a lot of reading in a short period of time, it's a lot of concentrated work. And we more than appreciate the fact that all the members of this committee really go through these applications very carefully. And it's tough, and we anticipate in the next year or 2 years having more requests for more funds and limited funding, and then having to reauthorize the ballot question in probably 2026, right, John? We're looking at a ballot question to reauthorize Healthy Community Fund.
Yeah,
We have to because it sunsets. So what kind of experience or knowledge or what input can you provide as far as our local nonprofits?
Well, I was part of one of the first ones, both ACES and then WinStar. And I was on that board. and really, I still am. Also, I've been part of other boards, and particularly also in Bali, in Asia, we started the Ho Bamboo Foundation, and I worked with the Ministry of Environment there and the Ministry of Tourism. So I lived in the most amazing tourist community on that side of the planet, Bali, and then lived in Aspen. And I used to say, I think I was part of the Wild East and the Wild West, but in working together. And so I've always done a lot of research, a lot of writing also. So I read through things all the time. I'm always reading at least 2 books at once, and I'm very detail-oriented, and I know a lot about business because I worked with every business in Aspen in the ski industry, you know. So I have those skills and passion.
Great, thank you. It's good to see you.
All right, other questions for Joan?
Sure. I'll follow up on Patty's question. So given federal cuts to epidemiology and senior services and medical services, how do you think you're going to prioritize everything that's going to come in front of the Healthy Community Fund?
Well, I always feel that if we're not healthy, you can't be anything else. Health is our wealth in this community. And I was, Dr. Whitcomb was my doctor. And then I worked closely with Dr. Dave Jensen and his late wife, Dee, to put the whole Wynn Health Institute together and bring the best of East and Western medicine together. And then when Burton Goldberg lived here, we started the alternative medicine movement. We wrote all the books, sent them to Congress, did the films, filmed at grassroots. So I have a passion and knowledge of health and wellness as well as the environment. So I think with the mandates that we have from our people here in the elections and the positions you guys have, you know, we have a lot of discussion on everything to fine-tune things because there's a lot of expertise and passion here. So I very much want to get the most out of everything we can here and give as much as I can.
Paula? No? All right, Joan, I guess my question is, will you feel comfortable saying no to some applicants or having to reduce their amount requested in order to allocate funds across many, I think, increasing numbers of requests that we get?
I'm very comfortable with saying no and yes and maybe and do a little more here and that gives some guidance. But we have to, you know, we all have to really be as balanced as we can in these things. So I just, I've had to deal with that all my life. So
Great.
It will be it's just practical and it all works out.
It's just part of
Everybody
the
has a good
task.
heart.
You do exude an aura of giving, however. I can see it could be a challenge.
Well, that's good. That shows compassion. Okay, great. Well, thanks, Joan. And so you're aware of the process, and we'll finalize our interviews next week, and then we'll talk as a board moving forward. Nice to see you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for being here in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Great to
I
see you,
come
Joan.
early because all the fun is coming early as well.
We
too.
like seeing you.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Joan.
Yes.
Hi. And you are?
I'm Mary Paula Daly.
Okay. So,
We like this. Everybody's filling in the gaps. Hi.
hi. How are you, Patty?
Good.
Mary Daly. Okay.
Who's this?
Mary Daly. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome. Good. So Charlotte has given us the overview that there are 4 vacancies and currently 4 applicants for the board. Oh, I'm seeing a hand here wave. Do you want to come up, Lisa?
All right, I just use you. We have 2 that have already, that are on there now. We had Eric who just did, and Jennifer Mason. So then we had 4 more apply. So there'll be 5 and an alternate. Is that how, I think that's how it would
Yes.
work. Okay, just.
Okay,
just
great.
wanted
So
to
we have
clarify.
3 vacancies and 1 alternate
Correct.
vacancy. Okay, no, I prefer being precise about these things. So thank you. And what we'll do is we'll ask you to tell us about yourself and why you're interested and what you know about this role, and then we'll ask a few questions. And
Okay.
it's a short interview. So nice
Well,
to meet you.
I read about it in the newspaper.
Oh, good.
And I thought it might be something that, since I have a lot of free time, I could do. I previously was a preschool teacher for about 35 years, and now I work in Snowmass at the Snowmass Club for quite a while. I'm babysitting, tutoring. I work at Susie's, so I have a lot of hats. I do quite a few things. I used to be at the cafe. I'm in food and beverage. So I think my range of people that I'm associated with is wide. And
That's great.
I think, looking through what the needs are and what there is to offer and making, rational decisions about where resources are allocated might be something that I could be good at. I'm on the board at Fairway 3 where I live now. I was on it about 20 years ago, and then I got off, and then nobody joined, so I had to get back on. And that's okay. And we're
I have
still
some
looking,
friends who live
Nobody
there, and I
wants
could
to do it,
needle
but
for
that's
you.
okay. Someone has to do it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great.
And, that's that.
All right.
That's
very
all.
Great. Questions for Mary?
Sure.
Yes, Francie.
Hi.
Patty.
Well, you will broaden your familiarity with the valley significantly if you're on this committee, because you will have to acquaint yourself with so many of the organizations that serve the valley. So and as Patty explained a little while ago, it's a lot of work in a short amount of time.
Okay.
But anybody who can teach preschool for all those years can do anything. So thank you for that. That's an incredible service to any community.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
great.
believe you
I'm on the
survived all
second
those years.
generation of them now, so that's good.
Oh.
I have my kids' kids.
That's really great.
So that's good.
I've had that too as a
Don't
teacher.
you love it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nice to meet you, Mary.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well.
Patty.
I just think the multitude of hats you wear will be beneficial, because these grant applications come in with a multitude of requests. So I think you have a broad perspective of thinking in all those different positions and requests that come forward. And like I did tell Joni, that it is a lot of work in a short period of time.
Right.
And we more than appreciate members of this committee, because they really give us great advice and recommendations moving forward. And if you can fill me in on any other like local nonprofit organizations that you are aware of, or
Well, I've volunteered way back for the Buddy program. I currently help sometimes Challenge Aspen with their volunteer. I worked at the museum for 8 years. I currently do some up at the cafe. I was the manager there. I work with Julia and Alan Dominguez with Epicure, and we're currently based out of Takah, so we had that benefit. So I had both of Greg's twins at the preschool. So I kind of have a lot of recognition, I would say, maybe, to lots of different venues and different genres of people. For some reason, I don't know, they just want to tell me everything all the time.
And Kelly's question, how hard is it for you to say no?
Well,
because you take on so
I
much
know.
work.
You know what? I actually, I'm getting better at saying no. You'd be really proud of me, because I could be working every single day, and I've said no 7 times in 2 days.
Well, in this case, it's saying no to
Saying
people.
no to people who actually, really need.
I know, it's
funding.
hard.
Right.
And then, not just no in total, but no in the amount, so we can shift amounts around, because we have a limited dollar amount, and we have unlimited amount of requests.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a tough but much appreciated committee to be on.
Right. Because, I mean, does it appear that the same organizations receive every year, or
We
is
have
it-
partners
Okay.
that do that kind of it. We have different categories.
Sure.
And some are new, some are old repeating, some are expanding, some are becoming smaller, some are
Right.
joining up. So we never know from year to year what the applications may come in. But we've definitely seen, and we will, I think, in the next year or so, see more requests because of other funding issues around the country.
And so, does the committee meet together, or is it individual? Everybody reads each applicant and then they discuss it, or?
I think they pre-read and then meet twice.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We meet 3 nights or
3
3
times.
days together.
Okay.
And duke it out.
And we
Duke it
stay
out.
out of it till it comes to us.
Okay.
So it's a very focused time commitment over, you know, from when the applications come in and are collated for you all to when you read them, decide, make recommendations that then come to our board to vote on.
Right.
As opposed to some of our other citizen board committees that meet every month or, you know, multiple times a month. This one is much more focused.
And I apologize. The funding comes from which? So
We have a dedicated tax
Okay.
called the Healthy Community Fund.
that's different than like what the Kids First affiliation is, correct? Okay.
It is, yeah,
Okay.
and the parameters will be spelled out for you about how to allocate so you may have someone who applies that's completely outside of the fund.
Sure.
And just, they don't meet the parameters. And then
Right.
the other ones, you figure out if they do, how they do, how well they do, how much you want to give them for that effort, all that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, other questions for Mary? Or Mary, do you have more other questions for us? 'Cause it's helpful.
And does this occur in the fall? Is that correct? Usually, is it in October?
August
through
I think they're due in
Okay,
August,
so in
right?
the fall sometime.
Late
So
summer,
do you
early
start
fall.
getting
You'll
applications?
get the applications to
Mhm.
read online
Okay.
in the middle of August,
Mhm.
beginning of August, and you have about a month to 6 weeks, and then we meet for 3 days, and then we make the recommendations.
Okay.
We don't incarcerate you or detain you for 3 days.
It's like homework, yeah.
Like a sequestered
Homework.
jury, but kind of like that.
Yeah, I get it. I understand.
So we have one more applicant
Does
on
it
the
still
8th?
sound interesting?
Or scary?
You know,
It's good,
it's
it's
kinda
good.
good,
It's a
yeah.
great committee.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, and it's very helpful to us. It does, the charter for that fund requires a citizen recommendation to the board.
Okay.
And so we really rely on your efforts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to see
Okay,
you all.
thanks, Mary.
And we love Takad and Epcot.
I
because
know. We
And
love
so
him.
we have several interviews, and next week we have a few more, and then what we do is we talk as a board. We make a recommendation on who to appoint, and we tell Charlotte, and she communicates with you.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay,
Thank you.
so stay
Oh, you're
tuned.
Charlotte. Nice to meet you. Thank you. I'm like,
Thank
am I-
you.
I was
Thank
like,
you
I go,
for,
oh, I hope she doesn't think I'm
thank
too
you for
bossy.
applying.
Just a little bossy. I'm not that bossy. I just like to get things.
I don't know, you have to be if you run a cafe, and that's good.
So no outreach to Ramona?
She hasn't.
We don't know?
No, Ramona? I can contact her and see, if we can reschedule her. I think next week's agenda is full now, because Jeanette was asking me for 30 minutes. So I'll reach out to her. And then Debbie Kelly.
She's
is
here, I
supposed
just
to
saw her
be-
in the lobby.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well, we can, if she's ready, we could bring her in.
I thought she was next week.
It's like, Patty, you can see through doors. That's cool.
I saw her walking up, actually rode up on her bike.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, well, we'll just give it a minute.
And I'm not sure, just when we're done with Debbie, if you all have a few minutes, we'd like to talk about the Healthy Rivers and Streams appointment that's
Oh,
kind of
yes.
hanging out there.
Mhm.
And then the library board also has an issue with an alternate.
Well, let's talk about it now.
Okay. So as you guys know, you appointed Sam Cox. And Lisa was gonna join, but Sam has, I apologize for not researching that before. He's also on the election commission. And the bylaws for the Healthy Rivers and Streams state that members cannot be on 2 boards. So we just have to figure out how you want, if you want to appoint another applicant.
Okay, Patty, you have a question?
I have a suggestion. I would like us to see us and be able to move forward with Sam with a condition that we amend the bylaws to put in a clause that says it's up to the discretion of the BoCC to determine whether membership with another board is a conflict. I don't really see the election committee being a conflict with Healthy Rivers and Streams, especially since they meet one time a year mandated. They have to, and they only meet on ballot question concerns, which are usually not related to a Healthy Rivers and Streams issue, but he could step out. But I think that should be amended. I don't want to lose him on elections because it's hard to get members there. And as I said, they only meet once a year. So if that is acceptable, we don't have legal counsel in the room, but I'd like to continue moving forward with Sam with that provision or that condition.
And
It came up before with Howie Mallory, he's on 2 boards.
And Rye actually I sent out an email to all.
Yeah, that Rye said it wasn't, but in the
It's
specific.
not in the home rule charter.
Right, it's just in the specific bylaws.
Specific.
So if we need to amend that to put something in there, I'm comfortable in doing so, but I don't want to have to wait to amend it to, I'd like to see us be able to move forward with a condition that it be amended.
Other thoughts? You were recused.
I've thought
so
about
it's
this.
Just
I'm just
Jeffrey
sitting
and
here, so I'm not gonna say anything
Patty
about
and
that.
I. Okay.
I just wanted to remind you about Howie. We
Yeah.
talked about it then.
But I don't know if if Healthy River, or if Open Space and Trails has a specific
Right, exactly.
provision in their bylaws.
Something did, but anyway, we.
But if the
ignored
home
it.
rule charter is clean on it, I think we're okay, but it's something that may have gotten lost in the waters.
Actually, I believe that Healthy Rivers and Streams bylaws were patterned after Open Space and Trails. So
So I would like, if we need to amend the bylaws in general, to say that it should be up to the discretion of the board, because in a case like this, is there a correlation, is there a nexus, is there a conflict? I don't believe there is with this committee, but there could be with,
Planning and zoning and open space or something.
yeah, exactly.
I
Good
see
point.
Lisa McDonald has her hand up. Hi, Lisa. You want to chime in on this chat?
Let's see.
We can hear you. Hi.
Okay, great. Sorry.
No
I don't know
worries.
why I'm having trouble with this Zoom today. But yeah, Charlotte's right. Our bylaws were fashioned after the Open Space and Trails, which has the same language about the not being on two committees. So I did have a suggestion if the board would be open to it. We do have the current position is for a Roaring Fork watershed position, which is normally filled by a person that doesn't live in Picken County. And that only applicant was K.O. Ogilvy. Everybody else that applied, the other applicants do live in Picken County. A thought we had was that Bill Yocums will also be up for, he is not renewing in September, so we will have an open position in September. So if the board wanted to let Sam, or I know Patty was talking about, maybe amending the bylaws and things like that, but if there was a desire of Sam, to maybe wait until September, if you guys were interested in appointing somebody different now, and then, it's only 2 months away. So that's an option too. And in the meantime, we can look at, updating the bylaws for, River Board, Open Space, if the BoCC and Open Space wants to do something like that. I don't know what other bylaws might have that language in there, but ours definitely does, and as does Open Space.
Okay, thoughts on the proposal?
I would prefer moving forward with Sam and then reopening the applications for when Mr. Ogilvy retires in September. I had concerns about Kyle's, what's his first name?
K.O. Mhm.
No, not the other gentleman.
Oh.
Rio? or?
No, Ogilvy.
Matt?
Kale, not Kyle, Kale. And his time allotment, because it was difficult for him to get here because of his schooling, and he hoped he could work it out. But that being said, that might be something we can reconsider in September. I just need to know if the county attorney's office is okay with us appointing Sam with the condition that we amend the bylaws.
Patty Kao would not be eligible because he doesn't live in Picken County and Bill's seat is a Picken County seat. So in September, he would not be eligible.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not.
Just a heads up.
No, I think we were very clear on our support for Sam, and I would like to stay with that and get it moving forward so we can have the position filled.
Sam was not one of my choices, just to be clear on that, but that the majority of the board, the remainder of the commissioners did, just to clarify that. Thoughts, Jeffrey?
I think we made a decision as a board. We should move forward. We should adjust the bylaws as per. Again, given there's no sort of entanglement between the two boards in terms of decision making. So we should unpickle the pickle.
Okay.
Remove the vinegar from the brine.
In other words,
that would be impossible.
So
Fix the
we'll need to
problem.
get clarity on
mission
that path
difficult.
forward before we,
See if Rye's okay with it.
yes.
Okay, I agree, thanks.
I just,
Yeah.
I mean, I have no objection to Sam, I just don't, it precludes KO from being on the board at all, which I think is an unfortunate disqualification.
But you also expressed an interest in Matt,
I did, yes.
and I want to talk to you about that at some time off.
Okay.
Which I think would be a great solution.
Okay, I think we gave you direction, we still need some clarity before we can get a resolution in front of us, but thank you.
Okay.
And what's the
Okay.
library?
The library they have lost an alternate, and the library board has suggested that they go back to having just one alternate. But we wanted to run that by you all. I did find the resolution in 2021 where you had two very qualified applicants for the alternate. So you appointed
Created
two at that time.
So, but we don't need to have two.
No.
So we don't need to change any bylaws to
No.
only have one.
No, the library board is just asking your permission to go with the one alternate.
And they
Because
don't
the
have-
other resigned.
Excuse me?
The other one resigned.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
And there's
Go
no
ahead.
issue with quorums for them ever,
No.
so there's no, well, we have to have two, so problem, okay.
I'm okay with it.
I'm
Thank
okay
you
with
to
it, that
them
was
for
easy.
checking in with us.
Okay, I will let Genevieve know.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go.
Debbie's here.
Debbie, thank you for
Hi.
waiting.
And Charlotte, I'll ask you just update us on the status of the planning and zoning membership.
Okay. So as you know, we had, you all appointed John McBride, and then he was unable to keep that appointment. So there is a vacancy. We advertised the opening for 2 weeks, I believe. Those applications have been, or that advertising has been closed. And we have Debbie Kelly as an applicant, and then there is another applicant scheduled for next week.
Okay. Questions for Charlotte about the status of the board? Seeing none. Hi, Debbie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For applying. We always appreciate the efforts of our citizens to help us with the direction of the county, and planning and zoning is a big one. And so what we will do is invite you to tell us about why you're interested in the board, and then we'll ask a few questions. And then what we do is, after all the interviews have been completed, we talk as a board, and we tell Charlotte our recommendations, and she'll communicate with you.
Okay.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Again.
Well, I was on the growth committee for a couple of years, it seemed, and that really piqued my interest in kind of what goes on in buildings in Picken County. And I'm a conservationist, and just seeing the amount of work that happens at houses, at large houses in Pickens County. I was a landscaper for 45 years. I'm now retired. But in particular, I had one big house up on West Buttermilk that we ended up, a crew of 4, being there all day long. So we kind of, and now the gardens were along the driveway, so we saw kind of what came and went. And so one day I was like, hey, that's the 6th truck that's come in here. Let's count how many trucks come to this house, you know, while we're here all day. And it turned out to be over 20. Just to do maintenance or repair on this house. You know, the pool person, the people weren't home, so this was just stuff that happens more when they're not there. When they're there, there's a whole kind of different group of people, because then you have floral arrangements and nail people and massage people and stuff like that. But it was mainly just construction-related workers and cleaners and gardeners and landscapers and pool people and that kind of stuff. So maintenance. And so that was kind of something I presented to that committee that everyone kind of went, wow, really? That's kind of, I said, I'm pretty sure this is kind of a normal, you know, 12,000 square foot house. It's probably not any more work or less work than most of them when they're when the people aren't there. Oh, it probably doesn't even matter whether they're there or not. It's not like they're going to do any of this work. There's an on-site property manager, and so yeah, it was like, okay, so there's a ton of work and a ton of traffic all being created by these big houses. So as you know, the growth committee, it took us almost 2 years to kind of come up with the recommendations of smaller houses. Not exactly small, they're still 9250 outside the growth boundary, and 92 within the growth boundary, and 8750 outside. So it's still a large house, and there still will be all the fancy tech stuff and pools and jacuzzis and fireplaces and stuff that use a lot of energy, but it'll just be maybe at a little smaller scale. If we can keep the houses a little smaller, less energy to heat, I don't know. So it was just really interesting for me to see, and then to, you know, kind of look at the bigger picture of how many houses on any particular size lot, you know, and how that all came into play, and just realizing that, you know, obviously the more houses the better, but you can't just shut down construction and say, okay, no one can build anymore in Pickens County. We can't keep, you know, people out if they want to buy here and build here. So so then Suzanne Caskey did kind of talk to me and say, you know, I'm worried that our recommendations from the growth committee aren't going to get pushed through. We need some people on the P&Z to really help usher that through. And, you know, people had asked me after we kind of disbanded that group, and I know it actually continued through the winter, but it ended up being on a day of the week that I had work, so I couldn't participate this last winter. But, you know, it's like, hey, are you going to get involved in more county stuff? And I said, oh, I may or may not. I'm retired now. I've got some extra time, although I seem to stay very busy. It's amazing, all the volunteer opportunities and other things that happen in this town that maybe you didn't participate in when you worked, that keep you busy. So it's
Sounds great.
So that's kind of where I'm at. I've got a little time, and it's an interest of mine. P&Z sounds like something I might want to, you know, learn more about and be involved in.
Great, thank you, Debbie, and thanks for serving on the Community Growth Advisory Committee. Yeah, it's really important for us. Yeah.
I remember when we appointed you to that committee, and you were pretty much, I really have no idea about the land use code. I really have no idea about what growth management, but this is what I'm observing, and I think that was one of the big pushes for us to appoint you. And after spending the time that you spent and the depth in which you had to spend your time, I have a feeling you know a heck of a lot about the land use code.
Right, I'd learned a lot, definitely, in
You
that.
did. And
And-
talking with Barb Tarbett, the two of you were like, what are we doing? And you guys took it on, and as Kelly thanked you, we want to thank you for that. And I understand Suzanne Kowski's concerns, because we've heard them too, what's going to happen with these recommendations. And as you know, we've already started, we started right off the bat with house size issues, et cetera. But, you know, we're coming forward, the 2050 plan, and that's going to go to P&Z, and there's a lot of things that'll be moving forward. And I think it would be great to have somebody with the knowledge of how those recommendations came to be, to explain to the rest of the P&Z members who paid close attention to what you guys were doing. But and I know that you're retired from landscaping, but I know you're not really fully retired, because I don't think somebody with your energy will ever fully retire. So I don't really have a question for you. I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So it's the first application I've seen where the person that referred you's been redacted, so I find that kind of interesting.
Who redacted it?
It says, how did you hear about this opportunity? And it was redacted. I was like, this is like 007 kind of stuff. Like, why would
There
you?
was an email address up there or something.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't my question.
I bet it started with an S and had a
So-
C at the end.
Given your work on the Growth Advisory Committee, that what was brought forward was house size, is there anything you'd say stood out that you strongly agreed with that should be pulled forward next in terms of 2050? And anything that you just thought, you know, it's okay if it stayed in committee and didn't move forward?
No, actually, you know, house size energy use was big. And then the traffic, you know, the effects of traffic on these houses on traffic. And it became, you know, when you kind of started looking at the big picture, it became a little overwhelming, and we just had to pull back in and say, okay, what do we want to tackle here? Because, you know, we can't solve all the issues of the county in one committee. So, but I think probably energy use is a big one. You know, moving towards electric homes and getting away from fossil fuels will help. But also just the amount of energy used too. Can we build better homes that use less energy? Can we not be heating driveways with fossil fuels? You know, is there a better way to just make things happen for people? I mean, for years and years, we all drove studded tires, cars, and we got around just fine. I mean, do we really need to heat our driveways? I don't know. I just have a gravel driveway. It's fine, although it's very short.
Yeah, it is.
Other questions? Francie?
Hi, nice to meet you. I think you served on the committee with my son, Forrest.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right.
And that was a big time commitment, so thank you for that. I just wanted to ask you if you have anticipated the amount of work that the Planning and Zoning Committee does. It's a lot of work. You can ask Jeffrey. He was on it.
Were you on P&Z before here?
Only 7 years.
Oh, 7 years. Yeah. Well, you know, of course, Suzanne says, well, it's just 2 meetings a month. And I thought, well, I'm sure there's a lot of studying in between those meetings to delve through kind of what kind of decisions we're going to make during the meeting, that you need to do some studying. As far as time frame, I didn't really get a great idea from her on that. If you want to fill me in, that'd be great, because I think that's probably important for me to know.
You want to give her some details of what the preparation looks like for a meeting?
So first and third Tuesday, 5 to 7 p.m., and packets could be 50 pages or 500.
Okay.
And so the work varies. Sometimes you're the sole decision maker, meaning planning and zoning is a single read, and sometimes you're referring back to this board.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
for a 2-step process. And so the reading varies and the schedule varies. Even though it's first and third, it's really, you can think about you have 2 parts to your workload. There's caseload, which could be a subdivision, it could be a location extent review, or you've got something like a land use code text amendment, or in this case, bringing forward the Growth Advisory Committee recommendations and turning those into land use code.
Right.
And so that's sort of your responsibility. I had one follow-up for you. Any potential conflicts in terms of applicants in the neighborhood? So Aspen Skiing Company, anyone else that you think you would probably have to sit out or recuse?
I do work for the Aspen Skiing Company in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I live at the North 40, so that's kind of built out subdivision. ABC, you know, there is one more lot out there between CMC and the fire department that McBride has to do something with. So, or I should say the McBrides, because I think he's kind of given that over to his children. But so that would be another possible thing. But other than that, I'm not really tied to anything else. I spend a lot of volunteer hours with Mountain Rescue Aspen. We are at this point surrounded by the city, and it's pretty much in the cards what's going to happen right next door, kind of, or all the way around us. Actually, it's so, and that's city, so you know, doesn't have anything. We don't have any say in that other than trying to work with them on keeping our access.
Well, thank you for hosting the incident management team in Mountain Rescue.
Oh,
We
yeah.
appreciate it.
That was yesterday, just for the wildfire.
And congratulations on your award. That was my first year, I think, on the board when you got that award.
Oh, okay. Thank you, yes. So,
She works hard. She used to be my neighbor.
Well, I think it would be great to have continuity from the Growth Committee onto P&Z, so, and thank you so much for applying.
Yes, thank you. All right, if there's no further, I don't have any questions for you, Debbie. I really appreciate the illustration of your interest and your time here, and I hope you find it interesting. I do, some of the caseload can be wonky and boring, I think, but you also get better at it as you
well, that's what
do
I
it.
figure. There's going to be a learning curve where I'm spending a lot more
Sure.
time.
Yeah, and then you just
So-
come to know, like, oh, I don't have to read 300 of pages of these packet. I can read these things that are telling me what I need to know.
Right.
And all that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You should
Good.
read all of it, always.
We all have different ways of
No,
preparing.
don't listen.
A lot of the pages are pictures and drawings, so they're
Oh,
not
good.
dense with
Or
words.
That helps that
Numbers of-
page go by faster.
Yeah, our
For an
numbers of
engineering
stuff.
report that the building department tells you, this is a great engineering report, and you say, great, I'm not an engineer, so I'll take your word for it.
Exactly.
I'll read the summary at the back.
All right, great. Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Debbie.
Debbie.
Thank you.
All right, have we heard from Ramona?
Genevieve's joining us.
Oh,
Hi, I know, sorry, Suzanne, we started before you could jump down. We've had a little juggling. And then, I don't know, Genevieve, if you're here about
We already took care of it.
we talked about the Basalt Library appointment. Sorry to have you run over, and are happy to have them have one alternate.
Oh, great.
And appreciate keeping us in the loop.
Awesome.
Yeah. Best kind of meetings,
Thank you.
right? You don't even sit down. Yeah.
I'll reach
Thanks
out
for
to
walking
Ramona.
over.
Okay,
And
yeah,
we'll
we'll
reschedule.
get a read.
Thanks,
thank you
Charlotte.
so
Thanks
much.
so much, Charlotte.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Okay, so let's talk about future agendas.
Yeah, just have a few items for the board. A note, at the request of the city, the joint meeting in September has been moved from September 8th to September 15th. They just had a scheduling conflict, so it's 1 week later.
And it'll be moved from the 15th to the when?
No, I think we're going to keep that one. We'll see.
Okay, I have no idea what I'm doing September.
Me either.
Certain to be here.
Well, while we're on September, we'll talk about September 17th then. We're looking at the celebration at Three Meadows, so Eagle County is looking at that, and OST Board is looking at that as a date.
For what date?
September 17th.
Is that a Thursday?
Whatever day that is.
I gotta look, I don't know.
Our joint meetings with the city are usually Mondays, so I'm guessing that's
Are they
a
Mondays?
Wednesday.
Mondays?
Yep, that is one of our off Wednesdays.
Well, sometimes we've had them on Tuesday after our meetings.
Yeah.
Very often we have.
Because when we host, we do it on our work
Right.
day. When they host, they do it on their work day.
Yeah. Are they hosting the next one?
Were you asking about September?
What is September 17th is a Monday.
Wednesday.
Oh, that's.
It's a
tomorrow.
Wednesday.
It's a
It's one of
Wednesday.
our off Wednesdays, yeah.
I'll just.
You
if
guys
it's-
will have APCHA.
We'll have APCHA in the evening, so if it can
Okay.
be during the day,
Okay.
that would be great.
I probably won't attend that one.
You won't attend that meeting?
Three Meadows.
The APCHA, Three Meadows.
Okay.
And then, last thing, a little bit closer, July 17th, we have that executive meeting in Basalt, executive session, I'm
On the
sorry, in
17th?
Basalt.
The 16th.
July,
On the 17th, are you sure? It was the
Wednesday,
16th.
the
now.
16th.
Yeah.
oh, apologize for that, the 17th in here.
And it says Francie won't be here.
That's right. Francie will be in Winter Park with the River District.
Are you gonna try to call in or anything, do you think?
Our meetings are over at noon, usually the second day of meetings. So I'm going, and I do usually call in from the River District office, so I don't know what the situation's gonna be in Winter Park, but I'm hoping to call in.
Great.
And what time is that meeting?
Noon.
Noon? It's a
Yeah.
regular Wednesday meeting, okay.
My guess is you'll be at the Headwater Center for that. You'll probably have internet in the room there.
I'm sure there'll be internet,
And
because
it's
there's people who
it's
don't
water?
come to the meeting,
It's a water
so-
meeting? Is that what what's the meeting for? It doesn't say anything, it just says executive session.
It's
Yes.
with the water
That's what I'm
council.
asking, and it starts at noon? Because it doesn't have a time on here either.
Just at the top, but yes.
Well, I don't
Let's
show a
see.
regular meeting on the 16th. Maybe I just took it off.
It's a
because-
We don't
special
have a
meeting.
regular meeting
We
on the
don't.
16th.
So it's an executive session, is an opportunity, I think, to meet with water attorneys. The reason it's happening in Basalt is there was a tour, I believe, up to Crystal that the
Right.
water attorneys were trying to attend, and we're trying to accommodate those schedules. I think there's been some confusion, and we need some clarity, and I'm not clear on this either, just to be clear. Because I think board members were asking about going on the tours. I don't know that that's the intent, but Kelly, I don't know if you have any additional.
Let's see. I don't know if you were copied on this, John, but Francie and I were given a proposed agenda.
See if I can find that.
To go on the tours?
Well, for the whole 3 days that they're gonna be up here, we can share it.
That'd be great, so the rest of us know what we're doing, would be nice.
Well, it's what they're doing.
Oh, well.
They're
It's
meeting
the-
with,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's their proposed agenda. I am gonna suggest they flip these things on Wednesday, but we can.
And
can
I had
communicate from that.
asked Jennifer if we could do the Crystal River tours on Thursday, since they were gonna be here on Thursday, but she didn't answer that directly, so.
I don't think they're looking at publicly noticing them. Because if there's three of us, it has to be publicly noticed.
Yeah, I didn't think the intent was
To
to
take the
have.
board on the tours.
Right.
I
there's
think
some
board members are invited to go, but maybe not a quorum.
Well, and the 16th, I'm not sure I will be back. I'm flying back on the 15th from Philadelphia, so I may or may not be available. I mean, I don't know, you know, when it is to fly these days. So,
Her agenda does not have that exec session
I see that.
on the 16th.
And I
So
don't
we
believe
need
I
some
got it.
clarity.
I don't think you got this
Yeah.
either.
Hence the
okay.
confusion.
Yes. And again, this is their full program for the 3 days that they're gonna be up here.
It's on Thursday.
I will say, I think this is gonna be really valuable time. I think you'll really enjoy.
well,
meeting
I
with
think
them
so
if you
too, and
can.
I think it would be valuable for us to be in the loop on when you guys meet with them. That's another discussion, because I feel like we don't know what's going on.
This is why we're holding this
Yeah,
exact session.
yeah, so,
But
I'm
she
hoping
has
I'll
it
be
on
back.
Thursday, so, and the Crystal River site visit on Wednesday. I wonder if we could flip those. Because if we're noticed on Wednesday for the exec session, and she
Yes,
thinks
that's
it's
true.
Thursday, that's a problem.
And Thursday, I have a meeting with Northwest Cog that I cannot miss.
Yeah.
And when is your meeting? On Thursday?
I don't know, Alyssa hasn't set the time. It could be 2 o'clock, it could be noon, it could be 10 o'clock.
Okay, I will facilitate communication about
figure
getting
it
this
out.
properly scheduled with them for noon on the 16th in Basalt, and I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, and we're happy to touch base too. I just wanted to make sure. It seems like seemed like there is some confusion. Apparently
Yeah.
there is on this one. So, okay, that's all I had for future agendas.
Okay. And yeah, again, I do really think this is, I'll just emphasize, I think this is really important time with them. They have done a real deep dive into our water inventory that I don't think has ever been done before, and have some ideas for some creative solutions to problems we've been trying to solve for years.
And the Lost Man Trailhead, that's us, right? On Friday?
I'm not going on, I'll be out of town on Thursday.
We haven't determined who's going on those yet, because I think it should be shared throughout the board.
Yeah.
What?
Great. I think as long as there's not a quorum of the board, it'd be great if all 5 can participate
At some level
at
on
some
some day.
point. So I'll make sure,
Thank
I think what I'll do is I'll have Rise share this agenda out
That
through
would be
you with everybody, so it remains confidential. And then we can further discuss at next week's open discussion, if that works. Okay.
I will try and be back on for this.
Your flights go so smoothly.
Yeah, but see, then I gotta be in Glenwood to pick up the dog, and so, yeah.
You're not flying with me, so that's a plus.
Yeah, but I almost did, and I would have been stuck in Denver with Francie and,
We have water fluency on the 18th. I just might have to drop that. I can't, it just seems to conflict every time.
Okay. John, do you have other open discussion items? I mean, future
I can
agenda
do,
items, sorry.
not future agenda, no.
Okay, let's continue to go through future agendas.
real quick.
I told, yeah.
Well, Francie, you're gonna be out on the 15th also, because I will
I'll
not
be
be
gone
here.
all day on the 15th and half the day on the 16th.
Okay, because I won't be here on the 15th. I will be flying.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
And you will be
I
gone.
won't be here on the 15th either, as it
I
turns
know.
out.
We will make
Uh,
a CCI.
Greg and
Come on.
Jeffrey and I did a great job last week. We had a lovely, productive conversation.
Hey, thank you. I won't come to any more meetings, and that's fine with me. Just send me the check on
We can
Fridays.
still move forward. So let's look at the 15th in case there are anything
I'm
on here
looking at
that's
it.
really, that anyone feels really passionately
I
about.
think
that
we've
we
tried
should
to
move.
keep
It's
it
very
light.
short, it
Yeah,
looks
we've
like.
tried to keep that light.
Obviously, we'll have to rediscuss CCI legislative priorities as a larger board, but I think we can just get that conversation
Have to
going.
have which discussion with the larger board?
CCI legislative priorities, I think it would make sense to include you and Patty in that. But we can get it started and start generating a potential list.
And I have no idea what regulation number 31 rulemaking discussion that's gonna take 60 minutes. Do you know what that is?
AQCC.
I think that's the Air Quality Commission on landfills.
Yeah.
Methane
Methane
capture
gas.
rules.
30, an hour?
Why is it Levi then? That seems strange.
Well, we have him tracking that rulemaking. He's been working with the landfill
Okay.
on that.
Well, if it's that important and there's only gonna be 3 people here.
It's just, it'll be a lot of hot air.
Yeah, because we will be gone, so it'll be the 3 of you with all the hot air. We'll give you credit for that.
I imagine that won't, if this is as big a deal as it sounds like, this won't be the first time we talk, the last time we
I
talk
don't
about
know,
it.
60 minutes, that's a pretty good briefing.
Okay.
The other one that's kind of big on there is the Regional Granters Collaborative recommendation. That's relative to the lift up request for $2.5 million.
$2.5 million?
$2.5 million from our general fund?
Yeah, that
Oh,
that
lift
is
up.
the gap that they're trying to cover right now.
To finish buying the building they bought in Glenwood?
Yeah, so we'll have that background for you, and I think there's a set of recommendations. I don't know I know some board members at least have had a lot of energy on this, so I just wanted to flag that, yeah.
One has.
Okay.
Did we give
Well-
them money the last time around?
I will
What?
be sensitive to any major direction, if any is requested out of that.
So that direction is really actually to go, what's being requested in that meeting is to go into a larger process with the partners who looked at it. Yeah, so it's not going to be a funding recommendation at that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to check in on July 8th. I sort of flagged this earlier today relative to Rye has requested extra exec time. We obviously have to go over those other two code enforcements. We need to revisit the ballot language for the airport. Are you guys willing to have a working lunch or start earlier?
I'm fine with a working lunch. Will the employee housing impact fee take us 2 hours?
It will. We have consultants joining us to present, I think, what the fee study.
I don't care how you move it as long as we're out by 5, because I have a commitment at 5 o'clock on the 8th.
Okay. So I'm gonna suggest a working lunch.
Okay.
That's okay?
It's fine with me.
Are they gonna bring it, or do we have to bring our own? I always bring.
No, we'll order it.
Thanks. I always bring really smelly tuna fish sandwiches.
That's what I just ate.
I know, that's why I thought of it. I'll bring
just
egg
so easy to
salad.
pack,
I'll bring egg salad.
Good?
I'd
Make
be
sure
happy
there's
to
delicious vegan options for everyone to choose
I'm
from.
good either way. Earlier start or working lunch are both fine.
I won't eat vegan, but I'll go veggie, but I'm not pushing the
Okay.
envelope there.
All right, we'll be out by 5 that day. And then July 9th, again, short agenda, but some
Did we?
potentially heftier conversations. And you had requested exec time on FIVOG. so
Yeah,
that
just to
is
get
something
clarity
we'll
on
add.
the
At the end of
process.
that meeting?
The appeal, the one that we're hearing on land use on
Yeah.
the 9th.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
The appeal we're hearing on the 9th, I asked for some executive clarification with the council to know what the process is and what we're being asked before we jump into the meeting on the 9th.
So the Boulevard Barrel permit could be lengthy, as the previous ones were. And then we have this land use appeal at the bottom, and that's one of those formal hearings that just by nature take.
We'll have all kinds of witnesses. Like
Rye didn't make it sound like it's not nearly as extensive as the
the
last
last
one we did, because there's not many parties in the case. So, but it's still that formal process. All right, and July 15th, we just talked about that.
And the Boulevard Barrel one, that's just the takeout, his regular license for
His
takeout.
renewal.
Approval of
No
what-
tastings, none of that, just
Mm-hmm.
takeout.
The 22nd, for our retreat, we received an updated invitation. It looks like potentially splitting the day, some here, some off-site.
What?
It's not, no, it should have been splitting between the rooms, like we're doing Maroon.
I thought it said Maroon Bell Conference Room and then Toklot.
No, we ruled out Toklat.
Yeah, I thought we ruled that out, so I'll double check on
Yeah,
that.
that's just what the
Yeah.
invitation.
I think it's really boring that we're doing it here.
I know, I agree.
I don't like it.
Well, but we can't do it at Toklat and have staff run up and down the
Other
mountain.
places besides here.
Well, that was a board conversation.
I wasn't here.
I do have a comment. I want to make sure that everyone has done their DISC evaluation, and if they find it as humorous as I did, I would like to hear from them.
I haven't done it yet, but you have till July 10th.
I know, I got mine done early and sent John an alert.
Yep, you did.
And I think it shocked him. I have some shocking news for you, and he probably went,
That's funny. I'm trying to think of different emojis that the disc might have sent out to be the alert.
they didn't. It's very strict, and if you bail out in the middle, you're done. And you can't go back and change an answer.
Okay, Good to know. Thanks for the
So
heads
if you
up.
answered that you get angry easily, but it was just a joke, you can't go back and change it?
Can't.
Yeah.
Or are you
We're gonna
obedient?
have certain opinions about you after that.
Francie, I want to know how you're going to check the box for are you obedient?
Well, I told Patty I've taken one of these kinds of things before, and a couple of the people I worked with thought I would come off as assertive, but I didn't. I came off as accommodating, just so you could put that in your brain.
Because you could, there's no
Put that in
truth or
your
dare
hat
there.
and stick it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Fact finding or
all right,
fact
so
check.
that gets us down to the 23rd, which has nothing on it yet, and same with August 5th and forward. All right, so we've gotten through July 22nd. Sorry. Any additional future agenda? Okay.
Are we having lunch served to us that day?
The 22nd?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Happier now?
We should go out to lunch. Maybe that would be a nice
Change, yeah.
John wanted us to do it like on the patio or something. I'm like, when we had that hot weather, I'm like, not gonna.
I'll grill for you all
What
outside
patio?
on the outside
In the
the
back of
kitchen
our building.
upstairs.
The patio upstairs on
Oh.
the third floor.
In the sun?
Okay. Okay. Thank you all. Open to, Transportation Coalition update.
Okay, now I gotta find it again. I had it
So
open.
Francie was out of town and Greg sent Francie notes to share, right?
Yes, now where are they? I've got like too many things open.
Greg attended the meeting?
Did it go away? Just give me a second.
I don't know.
Oh, so annoying. It is gone away, so hang on. I'm not even, oh, I see, it's over here. Okay. Okay, here we go. I think this is it. That is not it. I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not open still.
Hey, John, if Sam is out of town, who's doing future agendas? You know, because she's out of town right now. So I'm just
Yeah,
thinking about
Jeanette would be next in line for that.
Okay, we just may want to give her a heads up that way. Our meeting earlier tomorrow.
Okay, I have it.
Okay, Francie, please.
I'll just read you some of it because I can't ad lib because I don't know. It focused on innovative testable solutions to improve mobility, reduce emissions, ease congestion. The first one was the carpooling and ride-sharing innovation, the Scoop, Commute, and Tread Share. They talked about those two already on available apps that are pretty easy to use. We actually had a preview of the Scoop app at the meeting before in terms of, you know, just figuring out who you can carpool with. So key features include app-based matching, flexible scheduling, verified users. I think that's the main thing, is that you have to get verified sort of, so you're not picking up somebody who's going to be doing coke on the way to town or something. Built-in safety protocols and employer integration. The challenges discussed were rider safety, insurance implications, language barriers, and the need for scale and incentives. So there's 6 mobility apps currently used across different jurisdictions. There's a growing push to consolidate the systems. For instance, it would be called something like Ride Roaring Fork for clearer communication with both residents and visitors. Ride Amigos, a new pilot platform, will offer incentives, trip tracking, and multimodal trip planning. That sounds like a definite, I don't know what that means. That sounds like it's definite, it already exists. And then the van pooling, I know that Kurt Ravenschlag talked about RAFTA being the hub, communications hub for van pooling. And so they're trying to figure out ways to see if it'll support commuters from Rifle Sill, Parachute, and I guess there's some concern that RAFTA has to be directly related to transit, and there's a question of whether van pooling is part of transit. So whether it's okay with the record of decision. Then traffic managing experiments, suggestions including mobile stoplights to manage outbound Aspen traffic, and piloting limited HOV access to bus lanes. That's out of the roundabout mostly. Strong caution from RAFTA, maintaining dedicated bus lanes is vital to system efficiency and federal compliance. That's the record of decision. So, that coming out of the roundabout that we've talked about before, going down Valley, where all the cars and the have to merge, and then the buses have to wait for the cars to merge. It's part of the record of decision, so it's more complicated to change it than not, except on an emergency basis. And then autonomous and electric transit. The coalition discussed the long-term viability of autonomous shuttle systems. Jesus, really. Benefits include lower operating costs and reduced emissions. I don't know why there would be reduced emissions. They're electric, I guess. Pilot testing from airport to town or Brush Creek Park and Ride is under consideration. By whom, I wonder?
For auto drive?
For automated, this is the autonomous rides.
Weren't you reading about
Shuttles.
that when somebody was reading about that and how sketchy and scary it can be, especially at high altitudes, and connection with what makes them autonomous?
I can't imagine it's in the near future. I don't know who they mean when they say it's under consideration. I don't know who's considering it.
I guess you are. Surprise.
City of Aspen? I don't know what that is. Equity and accessibility, emphasis placed on transit training, cultural sensitivity, and community trust to improve adoption, especially among new or hesitant riders. I don't know what that means. Does anybody else?
I wouldn't use the word cultural or diversity.
I don't understand this. Equity and accessibility.
Oh, equity.
Emphasis placed on transit training, cultural sensitivity, and community trust to improve adoption of an equity and accessibility. I don't know what that is. Sorry. F, RAFTA's role in readiness. RAFTA shared plans for its first ever regional transportation development plan, launching 2026, and a recent $100 million investments in maintenance and housing. Ridership has returned to pre-pandemic levels, and staffing is now sustainably aligned with peak service needs. Action items for ACRA and partners. Engage members to promote carpooling platforms and include transportation app info on business websites. Monitor autonomous transit research and RAFTA's regional planning developments. Explore partnership potential for new van pools, microtransit expansion, and outreach campaigns. Risks and barriers. Difficulty integrating apps across jurisdictions, limited funding for electric autonomous fleets made outside the U.S., resistance to altering bus-only lane access due to federal funding stipulations. Next steps. ACRA will continue to report on actionable ideas for the business community and advocate for practical mobility solutions that align with ASIM's long-term sustainability and visitor experience goals. That's it.
Okay. Maybe more questions than answers on that
Yeah.
one. But thank you for relaying what the topics that are being covered, at least. Thank you. Any other questions for Francie?
No, but I want to segue because of Francie's presence at our meeting with the Department of Transportation.
You want to talk about that in open discussion? We'd love a report out from your trip to DC.
Now?
So I'll just say it was very impressive when we walked in the Department of Transportation and the, what do they call it? A career, it's not a political appointed position.
She's
Sabrina.
Career staff person.
Career staff person. And Francie knew each other from when she was there with RAFTA. So
And with the county one time, yeah. So that was fun.
it was great. It opened a door. We were talking about the raise or the build grant, and they were already well versed in RAFTA and the need for the community to have a transportation system, and improvements, and that segued right in, well, as part of our questions about our existing or questionable raise or build grant that's on hold. And I think it was well received by them. John, correct me, and Francie, correct me, but they were saying, well, you know, it's stacked in a pile. We don't have enough staff to vet these applications, but we're working on it. We, you know, have 1,000 here, and we're hoping to get whatever their numbers were. But what they said was, do you have a project manager? We're like, well, no, or, you know, it wasn't really unclear. And they were like, well, this is how you find who your project manager is. By the end of the meeting, they were like, we'll find it. We'll find who your project, we need to follow up on that. They were like.
You heard it back from them on that?
Yeah, but they were like, we'll find out who your project manager is. It was very positive for them to say, because we tied it into the need for multimodal transportation center system planning with the terminal, which was the first part of our discussion with them when they had FAA on Zoom to the meeting. So they were like, oh yeah, so we need that grant to help us start the planning of multimodal in collaboration with our planning of the terminal. They're like, oh yeah. So I felt very positive about that interaction, but Francie really broke the ice when she walked in and knew Sabrina, and then really broke the ice. Don't forget to send her that coin. I should have given her mine.
Yes.
I should have given her mine, and then you could have just
I have
given
to put
me
it on my
yours.
phone or I'll never remember.
Yeah, and then we have more from the, Sabrina collects the, what are they called, coins?
Challenge coins.
Challenge coins, which made her day, because we brought her some from the airport, so that was.
She absolutely flipped out.
She was
when
like a
she saw
kid
the
opening their
challenge
favorite
coins.
Christmas present.
I mean, she's a very quiet,
Challenge coin?
understated kind of person. And then all of a sudden, she's just like,
And we were like, oh my God, did we just breach some protocol by giving her these challenge coins? She's like,
I rise to all challenges, John. I deserve a coin.
it was that part of the meeting with the bridge build grant. I thought went really well. So we need to follow up on who our project manager is and get in contact and see how we can move it forward.
I think,
That is a wonderful intro. Can I take us a step back?
Step
Can
back.
you maybe tell us what your itinerary was, like who you met
Do you want me to go over that real quick?
would be
And
helpful
then
as a
you
DD.
guys can provide the content. So most of our meetings were on the 24th. We started off the day meeting with Senator Hickenlooper's staff and then Senator Hickenlooper to update him on where we're at with the airport project, the meetings that we're about to have, and we also talked about the land and water conservation funding issue, and I'll just step through. We went from there to meet with the FAA Airports office. They have a lot of new leadership. This was leadership that's being introduced to our project for first time, really. And so, but it was a good and productive conversation. The conversation really centered around both our environmental process and the need to expedite that in light of the previous FONSI, as well as aligning the funding. That was a positive conversation, and we'll have some updates coming up for you on that. And now, if I'll just run through, because I know I'm missing some content here. We went from there to Representative DeGette's office, where we had our first real lobby experience. We met out in the lobby because there wasn't enough office space.
And we got to meet Miss Colorado.
And we got to meet Miss Colorado there.
She's
But
I bet. She better be.
yeah, in that case, we were really just familiarizing with the airport project, with potential upcoming votes, both earmark vote, hopefully, or congressionally directed spending, as well as just the future funding that will be requested for the airport. We met with Representative Hurd and his staff and really went over the same issues as with Hickenlooper, which is the airport funding, so both environmental and upcoming funding needs, as well as going over Land and Water Conservation Fund priorities.
And we thanked him for signing the letter about the public lands use. And also, he and DeGette want to work together on that, which was great.
She asked us to support him in supporting her in a bipartisan effort, and it was well received from both sides, the bipartisanship.
And he thought that the Forest Service jobs had all been reinstated. He says he had been told that. They have not.
And we got the numbers to provide back to him.
So that was the daytime. We did have a dinner with Jessica and two of her colleagues, Patrick Rizzi, who you may remember. He helped a little bit during the FBO negotiations and continues to provide some legal advice to the airport. Matter of fact, was reading emails from him just here today. And then we did meet with one of Jessica's colleagues. We're going to be seeking a proposal for them to broaden the scope of their engagement.
It was her boss, wasn't it?
Yes, that was her boss.
What's his name?
Has just
He's
left my
Republican.
head.
Right, is he kind of bald? Is he sort of
No.
No, but he's younger.
shaved? Yeah.
He's
shorter-
really
shorter
charming.
hair.
Like Court, or he has like
Really
abbreviated
charming.
name.
I remember when we first interviewed them.
Yeah.
You could see why he has a huge position in lobbying, because he has definitely got the personality.
He's very dynamic.
And so that was good for us to, have some opportunity with
Another
those folks.
bipartisan move.
I would say that all the meetings were really positive. I think the opportunity to work with the new FAA staff that's coming into place with the airports division was really good to get our project on the radar screen now as they're coming in and have it kind of top of list for them. And our delegation continues to respond really positively.
Wednesday we met with Tuesday.
Yeah,
Wednesday
so
we met with Bennett in the morning.
Yeah, so Wednesday,
Senator Bennett.
we started off in Senator Bennett's office, and he always spends more time with us than he has. So
That his staff
we
wants him
appreciate
to.
that. Yeah.
We need to get him that photo. I'll work with Dale on that.
Yeah, and it was the same scope of conversation. We stuck to updating on the airport, particularly talking about our current environmental process, where we're at in requesting funding and asking for their ongoing support in that. And then we had to switch out to a different part of the city to go to the Department of Transportation, which is the meeting that Patty started off with. And we met there with their intergovernmental affairs. So they had a political appointee type as well as career civil servant. And so it was a really productive conversation in that particularly the political appointee was very, very clear with us that as they review these grant applications, they understand that applicants were responding to the requirements of the previous grants and the previous administration. They are really reviewing them based on their infrastructure. Are these really infrastructure programs that meet the requirements of the executive orders and such? And as we talked about the scope of ours, there was a really good response that, in fact, it felt good that ours probably did meet that, but it'd still have to go through the review process.
And there I don't remember which one of it wasn't me, but somebody asked, does that mean we have to like start over again with grant applications? And they were like, depends on the circumstances, but chances are it's just a matter of maybe tweaking some of the language and moving that same application forward.
They said we wouldn't lose our place in line if we had to rewrite it to
Yeah.
get rid of words like equity, those weird words.
But they were pretty positive.
That
I
was
thought.
DOT.
That's DOT,
DOT,
which
yeah.
was, and so there's really two things we highlighted. We did talk about the build grant, but our bigger interest, because that's the umbrella that the FAA sits under, was making sure that they're aware of the other funding needs that are going to be coming for the, particularly the runway, and our desire to stay in line for the terminal.
Did you say $500 million a lot?
Yeah, I mean, we
We
definitely.
said it once.
We said $100 million, and they went.
Well, they said 100 million. We said a bigger number.
They said,
yeah.
if we have more than 100 million for everybody, maybe there'll be 15 or 20 million for you.
Yeah.
That guy was just pulling strings.
So there's going to be a constant kind of push that we're going to need to continue to make with the agency and our delegation to line up the funding. The compelling arguments, I think, that I think folks just don't realize what makes our project different in so many ways is, one, we don't have multiple runways like a lot of, so we are closed 100%. Two, we really have used the useful life of all of our infrastructure, the terminal, the runway, taxiways. It is not an option to phase them out over a number of years. We've done our phasing. We've forgone this funding for decades now, so it could be available for other airports. So it needs to come together for us to do this infrastructure in this window, because both need to happen now.
Well, one interesting point, the new political appointee at FAA, was it him who said, well, can't you do like part of the runway this year and part of the move part this year? Part. We said only if the planes can hop. And he went, oh, that's right. You have one runway. And you're moving the runway. He thought we were just expanding. We said, no, we're moving it 80 feet. And he went, he was pretty honest about not really being up to speed as far as the actual details of our plan.
I think that's happening a lot.
Because he's a new guy.
That's unfortunate, because then we don't have the benefit of like decades of a broader ecosystem of needling from multiple voices on the need for the airport.
As far as the EA went, though,
But it also means that they don't know that we turned down money before, which is not a bad thing.
So I think it speaks, though, to the importance of we're going to need to do some more of these trips. I mean, that awareness amongst the folks at the level that are going to be making decisions is going to continue to be important, and those relationships that this body can build along with our airport leadership and such with the appropriate agencies is going to continue to be important. So I would imagine there will probably be a fall trip coming up, would be my guess.
But as far as the EA, I think I felt that there was a clear understanding that the timing is critical for us because of the need to apply for the grant for the terminal funding and the fact we have one last, it's going to be gone. And they were like, oh, yeah. So I think the fact that they kept saying, well, you've checked this box, you've checked that box, literally, that they were impressed. And we said our staff has been on this as far as getting the information forward, which came on Friday, is my understanding, the noise and the air quality. So we're already moving forward. The application, it appeared, I'll be more precise, but it appeared that they would be supportive of doing the modified, the written evaluation, rather than the long-term, the longer length, the EA.
Yeah.
I think they're under pressure to have infrastructure and that kind of thing moving and not very concerned with the environment, the current administrative appointees.
The key question, though, I think, and I think it's important for this board to understand, is the real question is, have things changed? Has the data changed significantly in terms of noise contours based on the new fleet mix and air quality and modeling and those sorts of things? And it did not change significantly from the last time we got a FONSI on the environmental assessment. And so we did go through that full process. We did more public process than is typically required when we got that FONSI, and conditions haven't changed hardly at all. And so I think this board can still feel good about the due diligence that's been done on the environmental assessment part, even if the next step is a written reevaluation.
I felt overall the meetings went really well. We were well received, and we left on really good standing with everybody we met with.
It was 103 degrees with exceedingly high humidity in Washington.
It was terrible.
Exceedingly cold office.
It was
building.
so
Outside
bad.
was suffocating.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Fortunately, we were mostly in air conditioning, but everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
Everybody with whom we interacted was
Sure.
talking about it.
Yeah.
It was exceptionally uncomfortable.
Tough town to wear a suit in weather like that.
Right?
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Congrats.
No congrats yet, but
Always
Well, on the
interesting.
productivity.
yeah.
Sheriff, hi, nice to
Hi.
see you. Come chat with us. What are you here for?
Certainly will. I think I'm here to.
Are we in
we're-
trouble
we're
again?
here To update,
Come
I'm
on
sorry.
up.
Are we in trouble again?
We asked for two things.
Lila? Kind of an update on, or debrief, whatever you want to call it, on yesterday's fire. And Jeffrey, I don't know if you looked at your email. We received the email from Chief Scott Thompson. I didn't dig into it with all the information that, and John, I forwarded it to you,
Yep,
even though he
thank
asked
you.
not to forward it or not share it. About the fire retardant. But as far as a fire goes, it was really, I don't want to call it a drill, but it was, and Parker, if you want to come up and add, it was great as far as the way it was handled, the resources that came in, quick decisions, quick action, I think really impacted the fire to the point that it didn't grow fast or large. Them calling in the helicopter from Rifle.
Yes.
And what agency?
It's,
Was that called?
I'm not sure if that's on the Colorado State contract or Forest Service. It could be, or interagency, it could be the two.
And I was timing the drops. He was filling them up at the reservoir and Wildcat Ranch, and he was dropping every 4 to 5 minutes, which was great. Then the 2-seat planes came in, and they were flying around, sizing up where they're going to drop with communication with people on the ground. And they just did 2 passes. I think a total of one had 700 gallons, one had 680 gallons of the retardant. And once that was dropped, we were literally, I think I told John this already, we were ready to hit the send button on the pre-evacuation notice. And then we just had a meeting prior to this that we're going to send that sooner, just so people are getting prepared. And it just tamped down that fire so quickly between the water and the retardant.
Good job.
That, yeah, and I was talking to Scott Thompson this morning, and about $1,000, maybe $2,000 worth of retardant saved about $95 million in real estate.
Or more.
I don't know all the resources, the agencies that were there. I know Aspen was there, Roaring Fork, Carbondale.
Interagency at a Rifle came up,
Yeah.
they had an engine.
It was great. Communications is always an issue, but I don't think it was much of an issue yesterday. Certainly within our organization, we had Starlink on one of the sergeant's cars. We set up a Slack page or channel and a huddle, so we were able to talk to each. It was because up there is a black hole of communications, right? Except for radios, but it was really neat to be there and watch and listen and be involved with the new technology that we're using. I don't know if you know how it started. This guy who lives there at that address, 6,490 or something like that.
Yeah.
Snowmass Creek Road. He just picked up the Sprinter van. Apparently it's brand new.
No.
He gets on Snowmass Creek Road and he smells something. He didn't think it was a Sprinter van. He pulls in his driveway. I think he popped the hood, and it burst into flames, or it was already on fire. Something exploded. Not as sensational as the newspapers tried to make it. It didn't. The van itself didn't explode. A tire could have popped, or something popped, and it spread the fire across the Snowmass Creek Road. Dustin, the sergeant, Dustin Gray pulled up, and he said the fire, he said, was maximum 2 foot by 2 foot. I think he put his car in reverse to go back. By the time he turned around, it was up the hillside, and I heard him say over the radio, 35, 40-foot flames.
Jeez.
And that's when everybody went into action and was really able to knock this fire down quickly and efficiently. And any questions about, or do you want to add to that, or are there any questions, or?
The only thing to add is I think we're still very fortunate at this end of the valley. Stuff's still rather green, so most of that growth in the fire was wind driven. It was very gusty. That helped us actually midway through, kind of when things changed, because we had a trigger point of if the fire were to cross Mesa Road, which it actually an ember did and started a spot fire above. But right as it happened, the wind happened to stall. It gave fire a chance to catch up on that spot fire, and then it reversed and kind of pushed the fire back on itself. So there was a lot of luck involved yesterday. Some green weather, some green vegetation. That moment of weather really allowed the helicopter to get to work, and so it was a good reminder of why we're in stage 1 restrictions now. If we get another week like we had last week, where it's dry, hot, windy, that any green left in that vegetation will be gone. That's a whole different story. That hillside's steep, and it would have climbed right up there. So, yesterday was a great reminder.
I'm learning a lot about the science of fire with this ERCs, the energy release components, and that's, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a fire guy as well. It's that energy that's in front of that fire, which is going to dictate how fast it's going to grow.
Sucks it up.
And it's pretty amazing.
So I just sent Scott Thompson a huge thank you, and he just responded. That was a close call. Could have been a devastating fire. First, when van exploded, that no firefighters were injured. Second, we have great partners and resources that help stop this fire. Our firefighters are the best.
Yep.
Wanted
We
to
had a
read that.
similar conversation this morning.
Yeah.
About the partners.
All right, Jeffrey.
Any chance we're going to stage 2 before July 4th?
Not to date noticing, and all the science tells us that we should stay in
That one.
stage 1.
What are the specifics of stage 1? What can't you do?
Any fire has to be in a metal ring or concrete ring. People can't just make a stone ring. And we're telling campers, and the message that we're getting out there is that you check in with a campground host. And if they did, they probably have the proper fire ring, whether it be concrete or steel. I don't know them verbatim and in certain order.
Smoking only in
Non-combustible, concrete or asphalt. Chainsaws, everything has to have spark resistors. What else, Parker?
No fireworks.
No
That's a big
fireworks,
one. So
which is-
sparklers, all the stuff we normally get at 4th of July, it's legal in Colorado. It's just not a good idea right now. Spark arresters, what else? Stage 1 is kind of really the fire rings are the big takeaway from it. And it's supposed to kind of heighten awareness. So yeah, we're getting there with fire risk, but it doesn't curtail too many activities beyond the fireworks and the fire rings. It's stage 2 where things really start shutting down.
And in the backcountry, can you use stoves?
You can still use anything that has a liquefied gas. So camp stoves with little camp
The
stoves.
containers.
Yep, those are fine. You can still use your propane porch fire pit. You cannot use your solo stove that you put wood into. That creates embers. So it's things that don't create embers that's still allowed by the code. We always want to encourage people to be aware of what's around them. Just because they're using a gas stove, it doesn't mean there can't be something like if they're doing marshmallows and their child gets a marshmallow on fire and flicks it in dry brush, that could be a bad thing. So we really try and say, be aware, even if it's a gas stove, there's still those other risks you have to think of.
So outside barbecues that are with charcoal pieces, you can't do. Fire.
Charcoal's still allowed in stage 1
You can't do charcoal.
on private property.
I'm surprised.
Not very strict.
For me, I'm really concerned about the outside smoking. People just tend to flick their butts. driving down this
It's the
road
drivers,
or-
yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm standing on a road that's paved, but I flick my butt off into the bushes next door. I think outdoor smoking right now is just really risk, like the dragging chains on the highway. People don't
That's
think
how
about
most of the I-70 fires, if
Yeah.
not all of them, have
Yeah.
started with the changes.
So is that based on up valley conditions? Because it's really different down valley. Like you were saying, we were really lucky that fire had, there's no green down valley
So-
anymore.
So, Francis, we coordinate and have a meeting every Tuesday morning. I didn't attend, I was doing something else this morning, but Chris Breitbach and Parker may have been on the call as well, I'm not sure. Monday afternoon, we get a packet of, 18 pages of science, the information, everything else. And then we have a small group text that includes Rob Goodwin, Rick Ballantyne, Scott Thompson, Forest Service, BLM, everybody. So there's no confusion to people who are going to get the restrictions. We all agree on what, if any restrictions or what level of restrictions. So there's zero confusion to the public in Pickens County.
So Rob is part of that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And we, sorry, can I jump in?
No, but yeah, please.
We try and go uniformly, because years ago, before we started having these conversations, Prince Creek Road borders Garfield County, Pickens County, BLM, Forest Service, and
Right.
as you drove up Prince Creek Road, depending on where you were and what side of the road you were on, the fire restrictions were different.
Right.
And when we got there, that created a lot of confusion because there's all those campsites along the road. So it was this, let's go in together and come out of restrictions together. And so that way, the whole White River National Forest, usually Pickens, Eagle, Garfield, at least the counties that share so many mountain borders, we're all in that, and Summit County, we're all on that same page. And so we will enter and we will come out of restrictions at the same time. There are times, because Garfield County is vastly different when you start getting into the kind of below, like rifle area. They've had to go in a little bit before us, but overall we try and do it uniformly.
And does Eagle will go into restrictions when there's a red flag notification?
Correct.
And we don't do that. It's just the red flag notification is enough for people to realize they shouldn't be doing hazardous things.
Well, thank you. We have to get
Great
out of
job.
here shortly, and I think Levi might be here for something.
I just
Do you
wanna-
have an open discussion item or no? No? Okay.
Only unless you had questions about that Reg 31 rulemaking.
Oh,
I have one more quick.
Yes.
I want to really thank you guys in light of what happened in Idaho
yeah.
with first responders.
Yeah.
That was beyond devastating and tragic, unbelievable. And so when our first responders showed up yesterday, they did so because that's their job and they're passionate about it, and they put their lives on the line now even more so. So we thank them. That was huge.
That was so awful.
Thank you.
I could not even believe it.
and then the last thing for the board is a thank you note from Charlotte that she asked for
Oh,
me to
that's
share with you
nice.
all. And you can hold on to it if you want.
So thanks, guys.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy 4th of July.
Worth.
See you out there.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
You want to take a minute and explain your email to me? I don't really get it. About Venmo, before you go.
Oh, it's nothing. It's junk. You're being spammed from my email. Don't respond to requests
Oh.
for me to Venmo.
Oh.
Nobody owes me money. Because it won't make it
That's
to me
weird,
anyway.
Francie, that.
All right, with that, we will see everybody next Tuesday.
What, is she
Thank
gonna
you.
update us on?
I'm not gonna give it time because we gotta go and we gotta get out of here for P&Z and we have an hour to talk about it next week.
Do we need an hour?
When is